Welcome everyone to the 167th edition of the Nuthouse Podcast. I'm your host Andy Patterson, and today I've got award-winning Steve Wellens, Alex Morris, Adam Smith, Paul Webb, and former Mr. Boxing Scene Andre Kurt Ward is rejoining the podcast this evening. Congratulations to Kurt to hear you back again, mate. You can hear the crowds off shouting for you, mate.
TBE.
The love is real. Now, for some reason, there's some of the lads on here tonight that are going to be absolutely raging at last night's boxing for some reason. Me, not so much. I actually enjoyed some of the fights for some odd reason, but each to their own, I suppose. Just to let listeners know, a little later on in the show, we hope to have Bryn Jonathan Butler on to discuss the situation in regards to Guillermo Rigondeaux, visas, passports, brown envelopes, and ramming bottoms and stuff like that, if you are so inclined. We'll start off probably the biggest fight of last night. Terry Flanigan won a unanimous decision over Derry Matthews, 117, 110, 115, 112 and 117, 110. I'd say it was probably a very cautious fight. I wasn't really paying particular close attention to it, didn't really score it, but it did look kind of scrappy in parts, and Flanigan did seem to be kind of sailing close to the win. I did think with some of the vagrant fouls, shall we say. I think he was basically, it was forearms and stuff, and maybe some low blows and that. I think he ended up getting a point deducted as well at some point. But Flanagan stating after the fight he had a foot injury during camp. Maybe that was what affected his performance, etc. But for Frank Warren to say that this guy is the number one lightweight in the world, I wouldn't go quite that far. Maybe say he's a toss up for the best in the UK. We would say that, but just leave it at that. I really don't know what he went in. But
UK, Paul, definitely. I'd say best in the UK, definitely.
But I know, Paul, you're fucking raging at this whole entire card, so start off with the main event and just dissect it and just rip it apart if you so wish.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I'm trying to work out whether I'm just being overly grumpy about it or not. I don't really understand. I sat and watched the whole bill as it was live on Box Nation, and obviously there was a big disappointment that we were missing a big chunk of the card, but taking that aside, it was a proper world title fight between two Brits, and it was just another fight that just never really got going. Matthews, there was obviously a skill difference between himself and Terry, but he gave it a go, but he never landed anything significant, and neither did Flanigan. I mean, it was another 12-round fight where neither man got put down, neither man got hurt. Flanigan fought dirty for no real reason. I know obviously he had the problem with his foot, but he was winning at ease and boxing at range, and yet whenever the referee wasn't looking, he was hitting on the break, hitting low. And it wasn't like it was coming back at him. I thought Derry, obviously, who in the past had the moniker of being a slightly dirty fighter, I thought he fought a pretty clean 12 rounds. It just bizarre, and he got warned numerous times. He obviously deserved to get the point deducted from him, but it was just another fairly pedestrian, scrappy fight, no different to what we saw in the last couple of main events on either Box Nation or Sky. It's just, I don't know whether you want to see a little bit more excitement. That was Derry's big chance. If Derry Matthews sat and watched that fight back, would he think, you know what, I absolutely went out for my shield then and really gave it a go? Or in the end, was he quite content to just make it to the distance? And if I'm Terry Flanigan, I'm looking to put a statement out. And you look at the people in the past who have beaten Derry Matthews, quite a few of them conclusively, stoppages, and he just seemed quite content to just box and move. And if he's looking to make a statement that he is the number one in Britain and that he is the number one in the world, as his promoter seems to say, I'd expected more from him. I thought he could have knocked him out. He could have got the stoppage. Never looked at any point like he was going to do that. And it was just another, like I say, another really flat, lifeless main event. And obviously going down the card again, there was a couple of the good names on the card. Tete looked impressive, but again, it's impressive in a very...
took him a while, I suppose, to get
again, it took him a while to get into the fight. The Langford fight was probably the most competitive fight of the evening, but again, another night where there was no standout fight, and we don't need head down, defenseless wars. It would just be nice to see a guy go out there with the intention of putting a beating on an opponent, and just to see someone touch the canvas now and again would probably be quite good.
Steve, what was your initial thoughts on the entire card, mate? We'll just try and chop up as quick as we can. But main event, start off with that. First off, mate, were you impressed with Flanigan? I mean, I suppose he did what he had to do. I suppose if his training camp was slightly hampered going into it.
I wouldn't say I was particularly impressed with Flanigan. I think it felt to me a bit like a British title fight, to be honest. Just a decent, well-matched affair. Nobody really dared to be great, and and take it to that sort of world level. From what I was seeing, it was just more Dirty Terry than Dirty Derry. I agree with Paul. I don't know. I think a lot of it was unnecessary from Flanigan, a lot of the elbowing and the shenanigans, and he is a rough fighter. He showed against Stephen Ormond. He's not afraid to get in and get a little bit dirty, but I mean, he could have done a bit more. Was he injured? Was he not? Who knows? He's just an awkwardly effective boxer. He neutralises his opponent's strengths in the most part, and he'll probably box like this till the day he retires. I think he's going to be one of these guys who's going to hold his own at world level. And he seemed to fancy the Video fight afterwards, and I think it's the type of fight he would take. He seems like a guy who'll take on all comers. He's very physically strong, very tall, really awkward, very dirty, not afraid to mix it up. I think he's just going to be an awkwardly effective fighter, but for this one last night, again, I agree with Paul, Derry Matthews. He didn't really take his chance at all. He just seemed happy to coast a little bit towards the end. For the last 3 or 4 rounds, I just got a bit bored. I started ironing a couple of shirts, and I mean, whenever the final bell went, it really did peter out. It seemed okay for the first 7 or 8 rounds, nothing too brilliant, but then it just completely petered out. And yeah, just good British title fight, whatever. We'll move on. Matthews probably won't retire. Flanigan, who knows where he's going to go. Frank seems to fancy the Linares fight. I'd like to see him fight Crolla. That's more than likely not going to happen. If Crolla even holds his belt against Barroso, I'd be surprised. But just trying to think down the card. Langford, Taylor. Yeah, Taylor fought Eamon O'Kane last year. He's a decent enough fighter, but he just hasn't got it to get onto that next level. And Langford is being lined up, isn't he, for Liam Smith? I think. Is he that weight? Is he a
super middleweight?
Is he super middleweight?
Langford.
Middleweight,
or Saunders?
Yeah,
Saunders.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Saunders. He's going. He's
I
number 4 with the WBO at Saunders weight.
He's been snuck in for one of them. Sorry, I thought it was Smith. It's Saunders, in fact. As for that, Paul Butler was in an absolute midget. You know, I mean, he did what he had to do, but we won't see the best of Butler against opponents like that. Who else was on it? I saw Farag, opponent. You know, you can't tell anything from that. The Vijender Singh got hit a little bit in the first round. I can't even remember what round he stopped his opponent or beat his opponent now. Yeah.
Vijender Singh should be fucking renamed Flabdul, by the way. He was fucking fat looking last time.
Yeah, I can't remember who else was on the card, so move on. I mean, it was all right. It just went on too long, didn't it? I mean, those cards are bad enough. Didn't it start at like 4 o'clock or something ridiculous?
Yeah, 5 o'clock and you started. See that Sanchez opponent that Paul Butler fought? He only turned pro in 2014.
Did he? He only started shaving in 2014, I think.
You mentioned one name there, well, 2 names actually. The Jorge Linares fight, for instance, for Flanagan. I didn't see that happening anytime soon. He's injured. He's got mandatory commitments to Dejan's Latikanen, I think. So that then, as you say, the Crolla fight.
The winner of Latikanen and Marsili, isn't it? He's got.
Yeah. I mean, you can forget about the Crolla fight if this Twitter conversation between Warren and Hearn is anything to go by. So that takes us on to the Verdejo fight. I've seen some people picking Flanagan to beat Verdejo. Now, we did say a couple of weeks back, I think it was you, Paul, that mentioned about Verdejo, that he's maybe the shine's coming off him a little bit, but I think it's maybe having to adjust his style to the hand problems he's had in the past. But I was still fancy Verdejo to beat Flanagan.
I think he's still like we discussed with the week, I think technically he's still a very good fighter. I just don't think that he has he will be able to sustain the punch power that he showed in his early career, and I wonder whether he's technically good enough to get away with not being a more powerful puncher. But I think it's a very interesting matchup. I'd love that to be the fight. I'd love that's the way they go, because it's obvious that this Crolla fight, this nonsense about Warren offering £500,000, and Eddie Hearn would look at that situation and go, well, this will be a pay-per-view fight. It's not going to happen. No, but you laugh, but look at what they're
laughing at the fact that fight, would be on pay-per-view. Perhaps maybe even head one, and fucking cunts are going to lap it up. How the fuck is that even a fucking pay-per-view fight?
Exactly. You can almost see it now. The lightweight world title unification, the top 2 lightweights in the world. Let's ignore everyone else, but let's concentrate on these 2. And stack the undercard with Ricky Burns against a super featherweight, and you're sorted. It's just, you can see that's why that Hearn would obviously want to do that, and he made little jibes about the attendance being really low, and I've made comments about that. I thought the production of the show last night, which I know a lot of people listening to this don't care, but Warren in the past has been able to do it properly, and again, it looked like it was shot with a 50p camera, and the entrances cost about £4.50. So the fight that I'd love for him to do is to go to America and fight Bellew. He's never going to be a big talker. He's never going to be a big money star over here. He's not a big ticket seller, but he's a good fighter, and he's shown, and like I said, the dirty side of him is actually quite useful because it's shown that he's not just some slick boxer. He's got a bit of grit about him, and as good as Bellew is, and like I said, I've been a big fan of him since he's turned over, he's not indestructible. It's not a fight I'd certainly run from. Whether I'd pick him to win, to beat Bellew, I don't know, but it's not a fight he should be scared of.
I think he'd give him a lot of problems, Paul. You know, Rigondeaux, can you imagine that big lump grabbing onto you and sticking his elbows in you and trying to neutralise everything you do? It'd present Rigondeaux with a whole set of problems that he hasn't dealt with yet. I'd do it if I was Flanigan. I'd go for that.
Well, one name that didn't seem to mention Alex either Warren or Hearn for that matter is Francis Bartholomew, who's the IBF champ. That's the one fighter just seems to be getting passed over by some, shall we say, supposed top-end lightweights.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things of what does he really bring to the table. I mean, he's obviously a very good fighter, but doesn't really stand out for me either. I think that he's with Heyman, isn't he? I think.
Might be, aye.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly one of Heyman's. If he is with Heyman, I'm running with that assumption, but he's not exactly one of Heyman's golden childs, is he? Or children, should we say? So it's not as if he's going to bring big money to the table. You know, I think that what they're trying to focus on is those bigger fights and trying to develop Flanigan into a bigger star, because at the moment he's just a bit of a nothing man. I think nobody's really that interested in watching him fight, I don't think. The majority of that crowd last night, I would have imagined, were there for Derry Matthews and some of the Liverpool contingent of the undercard. You know, I think Warren's got a bit of a struggle on his hands to develop Terry Flanigan, because his style is exactly. I mean, I watched half of the card last night. You know, I started watching most of the fights and I just got bored to tears with most of them because there was just nothing happening in it. And I think that Terry Flanigan is a very effective fighter. You know, I've been big on Terry. You know, going back a couple of years now. I think, you know, and I think that he's very good and very talented. But I think that he's going to reach some sort of ceiling soon, I think, and maybe due to his own fault of not pushing himself a bit harder. I think maybe he just does enough to win, and you know, he's not trying to overly impress. I mean, like Paul and Steve said about, you know, fighting dirty, he didn't really need to do that. Why? You know, I think he would have comfortably beat Derry Matthews with his boxing. I mean, we saw fucking Tommy Coyle absolutely school Derry Matthews for, what was it, 9 rounds before he got clocked, and I think that Terry Flanigan could have done that for the full 12. He could have probably knocked him out if he really stepped up his game, but you know, he just opted to get rough with Derry and try to beat him at his own game maybe, but Derry really didn't have any answers for anything. I think that Derry typifies probably the archetypal domestic fighter for me, and I think that if Flanigan wants to impress on the world scene, he really needs to be sorting a fighter like that out promptly. But maybe this is a good, you know, this highlights for me why lightweight is a really good division at the moment. There's no real elite talent. There's no one there, well, apart from Rigondeaux maybe in the future, but no one there that you think, yeah, this guy's going to be pound for pound in, you know, after a couple of more wins, this guy's definitely pound for pound. No, all of the top 10, I would say, have a good chance of beating one another. You know, I wouldn't give any one guy a serious edge or class them as a serious favourite, and I think that makes for a really good division. But the problem is just obviously matching them together.
Just Adam, before I get your thoughts on the main event, mate, if you saw any of it or any of the Box Nation card, got a question here from Zico. He's asking, what had more coke in it, Celestine Caballero's motor or Robin Reed's nose?
Oh, Robin Reed last night was absolutely superb.
He was on the snort last night, wasn't he?
One of my pals put a video up and I retweeted it, and yeah, he looked like he was having a great time, Robin Reed, to be fair. He couldn't stand still, he couldn't look straight, his mouth wouldn't stay still. Him and Buncey seemed to have a great time, though, to be fair. Him and Buncey had a right good crack of it. But, I mean, God knows what Buncey was on. We all know what Robin Reed was on. Yeah, they look like they had a brilliant time together.
Did you enjoy any of the boxing last night, mate?
No, No, I didn't.
Every fucker saying that. Even on the YouTube chat, they're saying the same thing. That was fucking shite, dog shit last night. Absolute crap. I might be the only one that actually enjoyed watching some fights.
I'm waiting for Dab to pop up and call us all cunts.
There's not one main event this year that's delivered. We've had four or five main events, and none of them have delivered. We've had Groves against some tattoo artist from Italy that was crap. We've had Hay against some Australian doorman was crap. The pay-per-view wasn't brilliant. Last night was crap, I thought. And I think, have we had any others? And then we had Skeeton Eggington was all right, to be fair.
I thought it was a really good
for
fight.
what it was. But yeah, I'm just not enjoying it at the minute. I just, we just need to. I'm agreeing with what Paul's saying. Really, we just need some bloody action. And did Derry Matthews go for it last night? That was his 50th fight. He's only 32, Derry. I thought he was older than that, but he's flirted with retirement before. He's probably flirting with it again today. Did he leave it all on the line last night? And is he going to sit back and retire and say, yeah, I've took 10 losses in my career? On my biggest night in front of my home fans, did I go for it? I just think the answer is no. To be honest, I just thought that was poor. I mean, Tete looked a masterclass, but he was 1 to 200, so he could have been fighting anyone. Paul Butler, I turned off, and I regret it, to be honest, because I turned off and I ended up with bloody Jurgen Braehmer on. Oh my word, Jurgen Braehmer. I ain't had much experience watching the fella previously, but he is one of the worst fighters to watch I have ever come across, ever. He is shocking to watch. Really hurts my eyes. I ended up turning off. So last night I actually ended up with Match of the Day, or the FA Cup equivalent, on last night. That's how bad it is getting, that you're pushing me back towards football.
Casual.
Well, just on that actually, Jurgen Braehmer last night, he's fighting a limited guy, okay, and the guy decides to put it on him a little bit, so I really don't think Braehmer could settle, because, I think Braehmer's a good fighter. He's a decent enough fighter. I mean, for fuck's sake, he's got power, he's a bit fucking methodical what he does though, but he outclassed Good Night there last night, and there was a fucking strong chance you could have given him every round of that fight.
If I'm Nathan Cleverly, I'm on the phone this morning to Eddie Hearn and saying, get me that fight.
Well, tell you what, see when that fight was first announced, when Braehmer was still champion, I actually had Braehmer beating Cleverly at that time.
There's something about Braehmer, it's effective, and a kind of, so we were talking off air, and I just said, you watch him, and I mean, I'm not a coach, but you sit there and you see so many openings that you think, right, this guy, he can be hurt, his stance is so unusual, and his shot selection's so weird. And I think that's what throws a lot of opponents. They sort of don't really know. The guy was at Gutnext, wasn't it, last night? He was landing, but it was almost like he just sort of couldn't quite figure him out. Whereas I think someone with a real sort of boxing brain, like Cleverly, should beat him. I think he would beat him. I don't understand how. Obviously, we all know it's not a real world title, but I think it's a definite route that I think they should look to go down. And as long as Cleverly puts his head on, he doesn't fight like he did against Fonfara. Even though I'd probably prefer it from an action point of view or a more exciting reason to watch it, but that's definitely a fight he can win. I think I'm the same with Adam. I mean, I was watching it and I just thought, bizarre, really bizarre style. And I've seen him fight before, he never fought quite like that because he fought Enzo Maccarinelli, didn't he, Braehmer? And that was a very competitive fight until Enzo's eye shut. So I think, if I'm Cleverly, I'm on the phone, I'm getting myself a plane ticket, and I'm going to Germany, and I reckon he can beat him.
I mean, just from my opinion, I don't think Braehmer is he much worse at all than someone like Fonfara. They're both very basic, tough guys. That's about it. And I don't think Cleverly didn't look too good against him. I think it's a fight that, he could win, and I'm like Andy. I think he would have struggled with Braehmer a few years back, to be honest, and I'm still not certain he'd beat him now.
We've actually got Bryn Jonathan Butler on the call. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad. Did you catch any fights this weekend?
Unfortunately not. My book editor died of a heroin overdose, so I was a little preoccupied.
Oh, sorry.
No. I mean, it's crazy. But
I'm fucking laughing at someone dying there, Christ's sake. Right, mate, well, what we'll do is we'll just wrap up the reviews, and we'll get into the Twitter questions, some chat on Rigondeaux, but just before we do finish up here, George Jupp went to Mexico last night, and pretty much emphatically outclassed every way the 6 rounds that he lasted against Miguel Belche. The ending alone, I think it was a right uppercut, then 2 left uppercuts. I think the last one actually landed as he was on his way down. Absolutely liquefied. Did what he could, I suppose, in short notice, but ultimately, it was just, Belche was far too strong, for him, and probably far too skilled as well. And it's probably indicament again, Kurt. Jup's ranked number 3 with WBO. Again, the rankings leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and he took the fight on short notice as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, the rankings, we've said it, many times. It's going to be boring, keep going over it. But yeah, how these guys get ranked and can take a shot. You got to say full credit for him for taking the opportunity at short notice. It was a very tough fight for him. He sounded like he's well out of his depth, but at least he went for it and gave it a go. I mean, there's so many times now where you don't see that. So the rankings are bad, but at least it gave you an opportunity, and then full credit to him for giving it a go. And he wasn't good enough, but he had a go at it.
No, Kurt, I've got a first Twitter question in here for you, mate. It's for Jerry. Is it Pam's Jerry? His name is it's for what the fuck was it? Matt, sorry. He says, in honour of Casual Kurt's return to the podcast this week, which 5 boxing figures would he like in Big Brother, and who wins?
Well, I've already had Sir Audley Harrison in Big Brother, so that can never be topped. Who else would I like? I'd like Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Don King, and
Kelly.
Who else we stick in there? And
Kelly Maloney.
Stick her back in there? Yeah, go on.
Who wins? Got to be Hearn. I think Hearn would probably get the sex vote.
If Don King's in there, Don King.
No, Don
charm
King.
everyone.
Yeah, he charmed the public. Yeah, they'd love him surely.
Fuck, no chance. Right. Well, it's a good opportunity to get Bryn in here just now. Bryn, what have you heard with Rigondeaux? I mean, we've on this side of the pond at least, we know of at least one boxing writer who was banned from last night's show from Frank Warren for releasing the story that Rigo wouldn't get a visa to enter the country. What is your understanding of his passport situation? Is he a Cuban national? Is it an American passport with special documents or something that he carries?
He would definitely have an American passport at this point, as well as a Cuban passport, because if he was traveling for the Olympics, he would obviously have the Cuban passport. And let's see, he arrived in the United States in February of 2009, and Cubans have the most expeditious route to citizenship of any other immigrant around the world. So there's no obstruction to him attaining it. He's fought internationally as a professional. So it was just a paperwork issue, and what I understood talking to his former manager, Gary Hyde, was that the visa issue, Hyde knew about it right up front, and just the people managing him presumably just botched the logistics. And I mean, this is pretty rare. I mean, in boxing at least, I've heard about it a little more in the UFC, screwing up the logistics like this to line up a fight, but it's just very, very disappointing, and it frankly looks very incompetent on behalf of the people managing him. And I don't know how Jay-Z and his new promotional people appreciate this kind of bad publicity.
The thing is, he was literally just over in Russia the week before. I mean, he must have obviously signed some sort of documents and visa things just to get into Russia. So I don't see how they would have possibly fucked up the UK documents so badly.
My understanding is if he's carrying an American passport, he is allowed to enter the UK for 6 months.
Yeah, no, it's very strange, and I mean, he could have at least had a discussion. You would think with Russia's newest boxing sensation, citizen Roy Jones Jr. about how to better navigate the treacherous waters of getting into the UK. It's very strange. It's just the latest surreal chapter in this guy's career. Every time I think, I did interviews with the BBC and everything to talk about it. All of it's scrapped. It's just, frankly, it's just been pretty typical of him throughout his career as a pro, and it's just very, very disappointing how much unfulfilled promise there is. And he's halfway to 36 now, so it's
allegedly.
Allegedly, right, but very disappointing.
Is, in your opinion, Bryn, is it Caribe that's fucked up here?
Yeah, I mean, they would definitely share the responsibility. I mean, I would give some also to Rock Nation. I think everybody who's associated with them bears responsibility. This is not a difficult step. This is done in boxing, hundreds or thousands of times every year. So somebody like him who signs a multi-million-dollar contract, if you're fighting internationally, probably you need to attend to the visa issue. Pretty straightforward. So it just looks very amateurish. I'm sure Frank Warren is thrilled to sell a lot of tickets and then refund everything, and all the publicity and press associated with this just going to nothing. It's just very, very frustrating, and Cubans as professionals don't have the best reputation within the industry because of things like this happening with them with so much frequency.
I don't know how many tickets he shifted last night, Alex. It wasn't many. It was about 3,000 maybe.
Well, according to Eddie Hearn, it's something like that. But I've heard people say who are actually in the arena, it shifted a fair few more, maybe around the sort of 5,000 to 6,000 region. But it depends who you ask.
Yeah. As I say, it is bad form. If you're picking up the wrong, if you are required to do a visa, how the hell can you just pick up the wrong paperwork? At the same time as well, there was a missed opportunity from Rigo and his team. Actually, they should have been in Manchester a couple of weeks back. He should have been ringside for Frampton against Quigg, basically up there calling their shit out and basically calling them what they are, yellow for not fucking fighting them. Surely.
Well, and I think even more so because of Rigo's last performance. He had the TV exposure, and he put on, in my mind, his worst performance as a professional, and that would have been such a stepping stone to some big fights. It's just every time, other than Donaire, that he's had massive exposure, HBO or Showtime, promoting a fight that he has, and he just shits the bed. It's very, very frustrating. He is a guy with 10 knockouts in his career that have been pretty sensational. When I was assembling a highlight reel, he knocked out everybody leading up to Donaire. Not necessarily knocked them out to win, but knocked every single opponent down and knocked out most of them. But when he's had these big opportunities to showcase his skills, he seems to sort of let his foot off the gas and really become this sort of embodiment of what a certain breed of boxing fan can't stand about the sport, and people like Dan Rayfield just laying into him gleefully and I think unfairly for the most part, but those performances certainly give those people ammunition.
Do you think he really wants to keep fighting? I think he's, I think he was, when I say past it, I mean just like past fighting. He just doesn't give a shit about it anymore.
I wouldn't say that. I would say there are moments in his career where the outside tensions, a lot of legal battles. I know he has paranoia about traveling, that there could be some kind of repercussions from the Cuban government. There was some fear about that. I think that you're seeing age catching up to him a little bit, and he's very aware if he loses, if something happens to him like happened to, say, Roy Jones Jr. against Tarver, he could become a punching bag, much like some of the previous Cubans, like the elite Cubans did, when they, like a Solis or a Casamayor, or what's his name, Jorge Luis Gonzalez against Riddick Bowe. Once these guys sort of go downhill, it can be a very slippery slope, and maybe there is some paranoia on his part about that. He's trying to safeguard it by having sort of, like Floyd Mayweather, safety first attitudes towards fights, just winning every round but not taking any chances. I just wish we would see him try to make statements. I think that's what's so frustrating about him, is he's sort of like, I guess to use an analogy for the National Basketball League, he's like the best dunker in the world who just refuses to dunk. He will only lay the ball in, and I think that is the crux of what frustrates so many people about him. They can see his potential, they can see how superior he is in skill, but he will do just enough to win. And that is a very Cuban attitude from their amateur program, but he does, in the lead up to a lot of these fights, make statements like, you're going to see something special you've never seen before, and it ends up sort of being at the opposite extreme of what he intended. You know.
Yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in? Some questions into Brun?
Sure.
Anyone? Get some feedback off you there, mate.
I was going to say it's echoing a bit.
I'll mute you just now, Brian. We're getting a little bit of feedback off you there, mate. I'll just dive into some of our Twitter questions.
I was going to say on the microphone. Yeah, I mean, Rigondeaux has said, I think, since this, cancellation, that his next fight is going to be a big one. That they've looked into it. Do you think that's just, the usual bullshit talk, or do you think they are looking at a big fight, and what big fights are actually available for him?
Just untick your mute button, Brun.
Sorry, you can hear me now, okay?
Yeah.
I think it is bullshit for the most part, because in terms of substance, what does he offer any opponent? Like you're seeing with Frampton and Quigg, he's not bringing any money to the table. He's not bringing fans. And anybody who fights him most likely is going to lose and look bad or look cowardly. Donaire was a wrecking ball the year that he faced him, and in my view lost 11 of 12 rounds. Rigo got all the blame for that, almost no credit from most of the media, and I think you'd see that just his ability to nullify the assets of his opponents and then do just enough to win is very, very frustrating for fans. So that's not a formula that's conducive to people who are making good money or protecting their careers, wanting to risk it against somebody where they're going to sell out the fight themselves. Probably 90-95% of the fans attending the fight or watching it on TV or pay-per-view. So it's very difficult to see what is the incentive to fight him until he's lost, really, until somebody really just wants to get a notch on their belt by taking him out. So probably the main incentive to fight him now is just he's old. He's been knocked down a couple times by went to Japan, was knocked down twice, I think was hurt for the first time as a pro. So is that enough in terms of incentivizing some of the elite fighters in his division to take a chance on him? You'd hope so. I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of gutlessness, that kind of modern phenomenon of fighters really not having the pride to take on the best. I would have loved to have seen him fight Lomachenko. I think Lomachenko wanted that fight. I have an enormous amount of respect for Lomachenko. I think that would be a tremendous fight. But Frampton, I think, also absolutely should fight him. It doesn't seem like he has any willingness to do so, though, and that's very, very frustrating.
I think feedback. Yeah.
Just when you finish chatting, Brandon, just mute your sound mix.
Yeah,
We're getting the feedback after you stop speaking.
I think that with Frampton, the case is that I think Frampton does want the fight. I mean, he's come out with very almost humbly, I would say, in the past, saying like, I'm not the best until I fight Rigondeaux. Well, Rigondeaux's the number one in the division, but of course, Barry McGuigan especially has come out in with the usual comments. He's not worth any money. He's not going to bring us anything. He's far too risky. And I think that a lot of the time it is the case with these fighters. It's the management behind them that have no interest in this fight because they're all just money driven. But I would hope certainly that the fighters are interested in it. But it doesn't matter what the fighters are interested in until they're actually fighting them, I guess.
But do you not think that, in a way, we talk about obviously fighters choosing to not fight Rigondeaux, but we all know what Rigondeaux brings in terms of his skills. But if you're a promoter, you have to think that he brings nothing in terms of he doesn't talk English. He has made no attempt, and Bryn, you may correct me on this, to do so. He has never made any intent to sort of adjust his style or to go out and entertain people. He just goes out and wins. So if you're a promoter, now I think that Frampton and Rigondeaux, Frampton and Quigg, the winner, should have fought Rigo, but you get it in a way. The more it goes on, the more you just sort of get it. And you have to think, like with this visa situation this week, would that have happened with a lot of other fighters? I don't think it would have. Would it have happened with the Donaire or someone like that? It's just because Rigondeaux's of the attitude of, okay, well, I'm not going to fight then. You know, he'd have been well paid for Saturday, and he's now got nothing for it. Now, a lot of fighters would be absolutely gutted about that, but I don't know. It doesn't strike me that he cares enough. I don't think that he has a passion for what he does. I just think he's incredibly good at what he does. And if you're a promoter and you're going to bring him in, because again, he can't bring you, it'd have to be that way around. There are other guys you could pay who would do more to sell a show. Rigondeaux wouldn't sell a ticket, and not from the point of view that no one would buy them from him. It's just that he can't talk up an event. He can't, and even when a little bit of his personality does come out, it always seems quite negative. Some of the interviews that I've seen with him recently, he's very much on the defensive, and it's someone who I look at him and I think he's very frustrated with his situation, and I'm not too sure how much longer we'll see him box, because I just don't think he likes it enough anymore. But because I may be wrong on that, I don't know him personally, obviously, but that's the impression that comes across to me.
Well, I would disagree in part that when you saw him step up in competition and fight Rico Ramos and Tion Kennedy, I mean, he was extraordinary. Some of those knockouts were breathtaking. I thought he really showcased his skills, and it seemed like it sort of intimidated the division of my God, if this guy has any interest. I mean, unlike Mayweather, Rigo not only doesn't have any hand issues, but he's a devastating puncher. And of course, the style is counterpunching. So you would have assumed that Donaire would go in there and want to take him out the way he had the last 4 opponents that he fought that were all elite, and he was just blowing through them, and within a round he just gave up. And that's quite something that with a tremendous record, with coming off of the most impressive year in boxing, that Rigo could intimidate an opponent that way once they actually square up. Donaire was a 3-1 favorite in that fight. I just think, at Rigondeaux's age, somebody who's had allegedly 400 amateur fights, I'm sure there is some wear and tear, and having spent time with him and strength and conditioning coaches, the strength and conditioning coaches, all of them that I spoke with, said he was the most extraordinary athlete they'd ever encountered, and basically said his only enemy as a professional athlete was age. And as you say, possibly he's older. I don't subscribe to that. I mean, he's old enough. I mean, born in 1980, he fought the Olympics when he was 20 and was winning national titles as a teenager. I mean, there must be a lot of wear and tear on that body, so I guess he is probably trying to sustain himself, and he's mentioned, I think, in interviews trying to model his career after Hopkins. But I think unlike Hopkins, he has shown that he is susceptible to getting hit and that he probably doesn't have the strongest chin. I don't understand. I have talked to him in between fights many times and sort of pleaded with him, why don't you show what you can do and really dominate people and try to take them out? And he seems to have contempt for crowds demanding that of him. Like, isn't it enough for me to sort of just discombobulate opponents and showcase just how limited they are by way of comparison? But we're a long way from people winning rounds without throwing a punch, as was the case in the 40s and 50s. It happened on occasion. So with his punch output being what it is for somebody who weighs 122 pounds, I've been to very few of his fights or even watched them on television where crowds aren't booing. That is also the case with Mayweather. I just think Mayweather was able to incentivize how boring he is as a fighter, to making it very pleasing, the prospect of watching him get knocked out. And Rigondeaux hasn't done that. Rigondeaux, I think, has the most fascinating narrative in professional boxing in terms of how he got there. I mean, it's extraordinary, with a dictator speaking out on it, and the human smuggling operation, and leaving a family behind. But, as I discovered trying to make a documentary and write a book about him, all of the most interesting questions you want to ask are the ones that he is nowhere near ready to discuss, let alone answer in a comprehensive way. So that mystery hasn't, I think, been promoted very effectively to make him alluring. And it's very unfortunate, and it's very frustrating to try to, as somebody who's written about him, to try to connect his story to fans has been difficult, because it seems like just when there's momentum, you get an Agbeko fight, or you get his last fight, which is just, I can't defend those performances. They were not name opponents. He was not in danger, and he just did not take any chances in order to put people away. And in today's boxing, that's what people want, blood. And if you look like you can take people out and you have no interest in doing it, I mean, he looks very disinterested. So I would hope if he fought bigger names, I don't know how he's going to get there, that he would want to solidify his reputation with some definitive victories against a Lomachenko, against a Frampton, and create some excitement. He is not selling seats where you would expect them to be in Florida, so I would hope that, if he's forced to fight abroad, England and Ireland has some of the most fervent fans. A lot of them have followed him in his amateur career in a way that Americans don't. But there's just so many delays. I mean, he's just not active enough, in terms of the frequency of his fights, and then he's not active when he's fighting people. So it's very difficult to watch as somebody who really cares about him.
On you go, Paul.
So my final point is this: Rigondoux's biggest problem at the minute is he's now starting to burn bridges. So I can't ever remember a fighter who has sort of universally annoyed that many promoters, that many TV networks, to the point where Frank Warren really rolled the dice on this and said, right, let's get him in, let's show him what he's all about, and let's try and force this fight. Like Andy said, he didn't come over early, he wasn't challenging Frampton ringside, and then he just disappeared fight week and let down a lot of fans. So fans in America fans and the TV viewers don't want to watch him fight. The promoters don't want to put him on. He was given a chance on that Rock Nation card and failed to deliver. And now he's upset another market in England, because if they get him back, how many people would buy a ticket realistically thinking he's going to show up? So his places where he can go is getting narrower and narrower. And eventually he will get beaten fighting in Asia. He will get beaten fighting on a card in Japan, because he'll find himself with such a narrow amount of opponents. He'll probably take on a fight that he either doesn't want to, or one that's not quite right for him, because where else does he go? And I think it's a very frustrating thing. And I can't recall of any fighter sort of having been so universally pushed away by not just other fighters, but by the TV networks and by promoters globally, as Rigondeaux will find himself in now.
Yep.
Well, and I would just add that I think the money situation, as it's been with all of the Cubans, Casamayor cashed in. I mean, he made good money in his career, and ended up staying way too long because he went broke. And I don't see any reason why Rigondeaux would not follow that example. I mean, even when I knew he had no money, he was buying luxury cars, and a lot of the money that was put up for him to come to the United States, you would expect that those people would expect some return. So that could certainly force him to take some fights, whether or not he wants to. I don't know how skilled he is at any other profession, so this is all he knows how to do. And with a new house in Miami, with a new child, with a new wife, those expenses could force him to stay for a while in boxing, even after the skills. I mean, he's nowhere near what he was, I think, in the 2004 Olympics was him in his prime. I've never seen talent on that level in film, and we're 12 years away from that. He's still, I think, an elite top 10 fighter, but these smaller guys definitely reach their potential and go downhill much faster than bigger guys, because they're so reliant on reflexes, and the wear and tear is that much more. So I would agree with you. I think the touring around and fighting opponents that nobody really cares about for a paycheck, and what his expenses are, could lead him to stepping into a gunfight with a knife, unfortunately.
Well, one thing at least, Donaire seems to be kind of looking for a rematch anyway, so maybe that will be maybe his last big fight. You just don't know because, as Paul says quite rightly, it's going to piss off too many people connected to their networks, journalists, promoters, and that. They're going to be pissed off. He's ended up fighting in South Africa or some fucking place, you know. Probably have to get a job in the
Yeah.
WSB Cuban team or something as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think it must be frustrating for him too, because you have this kind of diametrically opposed style with his former countryman. Luis Ortiz, I think, looks like one of the most frightening prospects in the heavyweight division. And Rigondeaux's definitely somebody who follows boxing avidly, so he was always very frustrated that there seemed to be such a gross double standard between his style and Mayweather's. So I wonder if Ortiz can sort of go against the grain of what people have been led to believe about the Cuban style, whether it would incentivize him in some way to put on some performances that are fan-friendly. And as you say, learn to speak English. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot to get somebody to work with you on that, to help connect them. But the attitude has always been sort of the world owes him something for having done what was necessary to do to come to the United States, and it's very hard to have people say thank you so much when your attitude is fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause that's the way he comes across. Hey, we'll leave the Rigo chat there. Hopefully you stick around there, Bryn. I'm just going to get out some of these Twitter questions now to some of the more of the panel. Kurt, I've got a question in here from Matt again. Is it Matt? Sorry, if Jerry, sorry, says, which weight class in the UK is the strongest at world level?
Just got to think who the top guys are. I mean, heavyweight, you obviously got the best heavyweight in the world right now here. So, Anthony Joshua's obviously coming up as well, who people are highly rating as well. So,
just looking through some of the rankings just now, I would probably say super middleweight's got the most.
Yeah, DeGale's obviously very talented. You got guys like Groves as well, lingering about there.
Yeah, Callum Smith's in the top 10. Just quickly running through this. Two lightweight.
Yeah, I think we've got like a good domestic lightweight scene, but how many of them are actually going to go on to the next level, I don't really know. But I think for domestic wise, they're all equally kind of matched. I think guys like Flanigan can go a bit further, but on the world scene, I don't know how good they actually are.
Yeah. I just noticed actually, I just got the Boxing Monthly magazine there for March, and I've actually got David Hay ranked number 7 at heavyweight. That's after one fight in 3 years. It's as bad as the Ring magazine rankings and BoxRec sometimes, actually. Adam, George Reynolds asked a question, on the back of Quigg Frampton, do you think it's possible for Sky to be telling their pundits to give shit scores and make out the fights to be much closer than they are, so they can drum up the demand for possible rematches?
No, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, to be honest. I mean, I was absolutely staggered that my hero managed to score that a draw. I had Frampton 8-0 up at one stage in that fight, finishing 10-2. You won't put it past them, but I think it's unlikely. I just think that what is actually happening is that they are so biased that it just almost appears natural to put in scorecards like that. I don't think they will be briefed on the day to make it a close fight. I just think they are so biased, it just happens.
The guys on when we did the Next Big Pod spoke to Charles Farrell. I don't know if I mentioned it on here before. The guy that was the fight fixer. He was a manager of several boxers. And he spoke to us very candidly about the process of fight fixing, and he did mention basically what George was saying in his question, that sometimes they will just get commentary, and oftentimes the broadcaster will have be in bed with the promoter, and they'll work together, and you'll get scenarios basically where the commentary team are trying to hype up certain things, and obviously the way the judges scored that fight as well. The 115-113 to Quigg, that we've already spoken to him on Twitter about it, and that just rings alarm bells straight away, that they're trying to drum up this fake rematch in the future for more money. It happens all the time. They just need to pay off the one judge and need to, influence the commentary team. I mean, it's not hard to influence fucking Jim Watt and Nick Horn to crack absolute shite as they usually do. And you got to think that it's definitely not ignorance on their part. It's not them being stupid. It's them deliberately doing it. I think that they're being absolutely maybe not paid off, but they're talking up their own fighter. Yeah, they've got the agenda for their own side, and it's absolutely blatant. They're being told what to sell all the time, and they're doing it, and it's just disgraceful.
Well, they're only one step. They're only one step away, aren't they, from the sort of Bob Sheridan thing? I know he's doing top ranked TV and everything. It's one step away from that type of thing, isn't it? Where he's openly saying, so and so is my friend. He's my friend. Donaire scoring Donaire the winner against Rigo on the night and all this type of thing. It's not too dissimilar to that. That's the next step on the way, isn't it?
They're not too different to the Australians, really, are they? Let's be honest. I mean, they're just so biased. They don't even try and hide it now, I don't think, with Sky. The South Africans are pretty bad as well, but I think Sky are up there with the Aussies. I mean, they want their guy to win, and they don't really look like they're trying to hide much of it. And Horlin, I mean, he's clearly got his favourite. What will say an opinion, then he'll have to stick with that opinion. He can never change it. Then the guys at ringside, the likes of Frotch and the Matchroom boys, they're just always rooting for the Matchroom guy, and it's pretty sickening to see, to be honest. Just call the fight as you see it, and just stop with the Matchroom bullshit.
Well,
We've got a new commentary dream team made its debut as appearing last night. Nick Horlin and Tony Bellew, brilliant.
Tony's actually alright at that, but Nick Appallin's just is that fucking appalling at that job. He needs to go back to the NFL or I don't know, but he's no cut out for that job.
Yeah,
was that Bellew? Was that Bellew on last night? Was it? I thought it was.
Yeah.
Myth. I was only hearing bits and pieces.
Right, next question. Steve, this is for he's still alive, Brian King. Did Sugar Ray Leonard get the benefit of the doubt in big fights more than Chavez Sr.? And was Sugar Ray Leonard the biggest cunt ever in boxing?
You know what? This question is just not for me whatsoever. I have absolutely no clue to answer.
I'll tell you what, right? See, I'll not say Sugar Ray's the biggest cunt in boxing, but what I will say this, he actually opened the door and wrote the blueprint for the biggest cunt ever to come after him in boxing, which was Floyd Mayweather. Catch weights, demands on the fucking money and all that sort of stuff, so, cheers for that, Ray, but there has been some allegations going about of spousal abuse. We do know about the potential. He's been, alcohol and abusing drugs and cheating on his wife and stuff. So if that makes him the biggest cunt in boxing, then he's guilty as charged. But
that's just standard behaviour in boxing. I think Brian's more hinting towards the, like you said, the petty demands, the diva attitude, and catch weights and just shite like that. I think.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the way Brian's looking at it with Ray Leonard is his rival was Marvin Hagler, who was a total opposite of a Ray Leonard. Whereas Ray Leonard, made $500,000 on his debut. Hagler fought on the same card and was making like 40 grand. Hagler didn't get a title shot till his like 50th odd fight, and he had to go all the way around, fighting guys nobody wanted to fight. Where Leonard, because he was in the Olympics, because he was like the good-looking guy who people wanted, the Americans liked, he was seen as the guy who was pushed more, and a guy like Hagler, who was his obviously rival. That's why Hagler had that bitterness towards him. So I think, it wasn't Ray Leonard's fault. I mean, he was obviously a very talented kid who went to the Olympics and, got what he deserved. It's just a shame that someone like Hagler had to work, seemingly so much harder to prove how good he was as well.
As to the point about did he get the benefit of doubt in big fights more than Chavez Sr., well, you got two obvious ones. Obviously, the rematch with Tommy Hearns.
He lost that fight, yeah.
He lost that fight.
He said, I think he admitted himself he lost that fight.
But if you look at it as well, Chavez Sr.'s draw as such with Pernell Whitaker, that was a fucking travesty. That, I mean, Whitaker won that fight easily. Easily, Whitaker won that fight. I'm trying to think of the other fight where Leonard slightly got a gift, but I don't think anybody, no one in this panel, I think, can or anyone can actually say. My personal opinion is, I don't think any of you can say that Hagler beat Leonard. because there's no way anyone in this panel can give Leonard the first four, can give Hagler the first 4 rounds in that fight.
Well, we've all
still win the
discussed
fight.
it.
No chance.
We've discussed it. What do you think, Bryn?
No, I'm a very anti Sugar Ray Leonard,
Well, there we go.
and I totally agree with you that he laid the blueprint. And I think Roy Jones Jr. did too for what gave birth to Floyd Mayweather's business model that I just despise. Trying to get every single conceivable advantage with weight. And yeah, just, I mean, I definitely see the logic of running it like a business the way Leonard did, but I mean, I'm still pissed off even about the Duran rematch, you know, like, I capitalized that he gained weight, and I got all these advantages.
Thank you, Bryn. Thank you.
I hated it. I don't know if you guys saw the documentary.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
Absolute fucking shocking.
absolute bullshit. Even the whole premise of it was awful and totally wrong. I've met Duran a few times. I love Duran. He's one of my top 3 all-time fighters. Duran is not suffering because of what happened in Nomas. He did not give a flying fuck about what happened. It's Leonard who can't deal with it. It's Leonard who's never been able to get over it. That people are like, you know, what happened when you tried to fight him? You got your ass kicked. You know, he looked scared to death. And I also think what happened at the conclusion of it, where Duran is grabbing his balls, that was so iconic as he's looking out, I think, at Benitez saying, like, you're next, my friend, that Tyson stole the gesture. One of the most famous photographs of Tyson is at a press conference where he's grabbing his balls. He's just channeling Duran because it was so amazing a moment. It's electrifying to see a total killer like Leonard just have his balls snipped off in a fight. And you see it on his face when he goes over to embrace Duran, and what does Duran do? Shoves him and then goes straight over to Benitez like, 15 rounds? Fuck you. I can't wait to get in the ring with you. I love what Duran's legacy is in comparison to me is just so much more satisfying. I give Leonard full respect. He fought some tremendous fights, tremendous competitor, but when I interviewed Roy Jones, I asked him, because I'd heard that Jones sparred with him when he was going to the Olympics, and Jones was like, it took maybe 20 seconds into the first round, I was already talking to him. And I was just like, I would have loved to have seen the look on Leonard's face of you talking trash to him, because already you could feel just how capable you were against him. So I can't stand Sugar Ray Leonard. I just don't like him as a person, and I hated him as a fighter. I always cheered against him.
But I think I've just found my brother from another mother, actually, you just saying that. You know, yeah, I want to weigh in a wee bit of thoughts with this No Mask documentary. I've made it quite clear and stuff. You know, Leonard is on public record saying as he wanted the rematch immediately because he knew that Duran got out of shape in between fights. Now, other things would state that Duran's team made the fight, the rematch, so quickly because he was out of control, he was partying, he was drinking, eating, maybe drugging as well, probably. So obviously they've seen him, they've got this big massive payday still to come, and they're like, shit, this guy could lose it to a nobody. So they made the fucking fight. Leonard knew that he gets out of shape, and then he goes on in the No Mask documentary, he goes on about, I wanted answers, I need to know. I'm saying to myself, but you fucking knew beforehand. It was just poor fucking promotion from. It was just like Leonard, just the ego, and Leonard. I think he just couldn't accept that what Duran was telling him was the truth. And I see if people don't believe what Duran said for why he quit in that fight, right? Stop asking him. Don't ask him. If you don't like the answer, stop asking for a reason as to why he quit, because he's told you constantly. I lost too much weight. I had stomach cramps afterwards. You can see him, the ice pack getting put on his stomach in between rounds and stuff. If people don't want to believe it, then fine. He spent 2-3 years trying to rebuild his career after that, and he's still an all-time great. He's still a fucking legend, and fuck the haters.
No, it was like a purely manufactured Oprah Winfrey confessional moment that was not there. Duran has nothing to apologize for with his career. Duran is one of the all-time greats. I think the greatest lightweight who ever fought. And I think what happened, I wouldn't say friends, but I'm friendly with the filmmaker Eric Drath, who's a great filmmaker. He had done a tremendous documentary before that where there was this great confession with Panama Lewis. And I think he was trying to go to the well again. I mean, he won an Emmy for it, so good for him. But it wasn't there. That's not the story, and I don't understand how you cannot recognize that that it's Leonard who can't get over just how much credit, rightfully, that Duran gets, where there is kind of a sour taste to Leonard's legacy, because, as you pointed out, that's what created Mayweather. And Mayweather's fights, the fight of the century, it's all bullshit because it has nothing to do with fans or the good of the sport. It just has to do with him and Al Heyman and the people associated with the fight. It's bad for the sport. It lost a lot of fans that were there to be gained. And I think Leonard was one of the people who was instrumental in creating that business model and kind of savoring it and wagging his tail all the way along about how he could take advantage of people like Hagler. And I think he should have had more respect for them, and his competitive instinct should have led him to try to have more fair contests. But he was just always a fucking asshole. Like,
Yes.
I just can't stand him, and I rewatch at least once a month him fighting like Macho. What's it called?
Terry Norris. Terry Norris.
Terry Norris, and even better is to watch the Macho Man. I'm screaming back at him, it's Macho time! And I watch a guy who could not punch beat the fuck out of like an old man Leonard, and I'm satisfied with it, which is, I never root for someone to get hurt in the sport, but with Leonard, there's a part of me that almost does, where I'm just like, I don't know what it is about him that just pisses me off so much, but I think it's all about the Duran rematch. That if they had had a rematch that was legitimate, I think Duran would have done even worse to him.
Well, I tell you what he needs to do. He needs to get back on the cocaine for doing the PBC broadcast anyway. My God, he's fucking depressed.
Terrible announcer too. Terrible.
Right,
Any
Paul.
more Leonard hate going, or
I don't know
put it out your system?
No, well, see, I didn't need to hate on that because I got out the love and the respect and the backing up of Duran at all times there. I've got a fucking brother here who's backing me up at the same time. Fuck all yous all.
Also, Leonard is a terrible commentator.
Terrible.
Horrible.
Terrible.
Horrible. Needs to get back on the alcohol or back on the snort, as Steve would say. Paul, Boxing Banter asks, is Crolla Flanigan a 50-50 split? Crolla sells more tickets, brings Sky, and is more well known.
I think that's pretty much answered your question. I suppose who's the more legit world champion, who's beaten the better opponents. I think if Crolla beats Barroso, I think that Crolla would probably be in his right to sort of demand more. I think he's obviously, I don't think he's the bigger name. He is the much bigger name through what he's done in the ring, and also I suppose what happened outside. He's a generally well-liked guy. It's an interesting fight from the point of view of the Manchester. They're going to plug the United versus City angle, but I think Crolla would want more money, but that's one of a list of reasons why I think that fight's a million miles from happening. I think Flanigan is smaller profile. I don't think that Flanigan wouldn't take the fight for the smaller share. I just don't think egos behind Flanigan would allow that to happen. But if they do manage to make it pay-per-view, which I think is what their aim would be, then there might be enough money to justify it for the two of them to find some sort of mutual middle, be it 60-40 or 65-35, something along those lines.
Absolute
But Crolla,
class.
yeah. Thanks for that, Alec. I'm glad you enjoyed my answer.
I don't know if I had read Hearn correctly today, but did he say that if marinated properly,
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Crolla? No, he never said marinated. I'm saying that, but I think he said something along the lines of Crolla could earn as 4 times as much as what he's been offered just now.
Oh, what? 2
Well,
million do?
Yeah, but if Warren's come out and given him, so here's a flat fee of £500,000, even if the fight didn't do amazingly well on pay-per-view, there'd be enough money to beat that probably quite convincingly. And even if it's a non-pay-per-view show, if they work on the presumption that it would sell the MEN Arena out, which there's no guarantee of that, I think there are only certain types of shows where you can almost say with a complete certainty that there will be sellouts. And there's a very small number of fighters you can guarantee that. But if you're a fight fan in Manchester, I mean, I read a really good piece by John Evans earlier where he sort of almost previewed the fight, and he did put it in a very interesting way of saying, look, how often do you get the possibility of a world title unification where 2 lads from the same city are in the same weight class? I think it'd be a real shame if the fight doesn't happen. But it's it's the Warren Hearn thing. They have been able to work together on a lower level, but this isn't Bradley Skeet, Sam Eggington. These are world champions, and when Warren, his stable being as limited as it is, I don't think he wouldn't risk losing him from the point of view of he's not confident Flanigan can win the fight, because I think Flanigan would go in as favourite. But I think losing him to Sky when Flanigan's the majority of his career now, and certainly the fights that have been the most meaningful for him have taken place on Box Nation, I just don't see that being a route that Warren will be willing to take. And I think there's a 0.000 chance that Eddie Hearn allows Crolla to go fight on Box Nation.
Just a bit.
Deal bids.
Yeah. Steve Aussie Smith asks, is Bellew headlining at Goodison Park this summer are unrealistic considering the options at cruiserweight? See, to be honest, if his options were actually better at cruiserweight, I still don't think he would do well at Goodison, actually, in all honesty.
Are they still talking about this as a realistic thing then? I thought it was just floating along as a sort of pipe dream. Are we going for this Goodison thing?
He's already headlined it though, hasn't he, in Creed?
Yeah, I suppose so. Why not, man? When you're Tony and you've got the mouth, you've got the power to back up what you're doing. Tony says things and he delivers. So who am I to doubt that this Goodison Park thing is going to come off?
And he's always in exciting fights.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently he's absolutely raging about what's going on. I mean, there's been a few sort of hinting tweets that he's a bit pissed off with Hearn, but it goes a bit deeper than that because Bellew only wants a world title fight at cruiserweight, but pretty much all of the title lists,
just a bit.
Well, yeah, they're all either well off themselves and very difficult to get over, but they're also for the next year or so pretty much wrapped up in either mandatories or fights that they've already made. I mean, what have we got? We've got Lebedev and
Ramirez. That's unification fight.
Yeah, unification. I mean,
Roz against Makabu, which will be a fucking great fight. And
Well,
Galati, he faces Cunningham.
Makabu, was it Makabu who's injured or Drozd?
No, I thought it was
Drozd.
Makabu and Drozd. Is that the fight?
Yeah,
that
he's injured. The fight's
for
off.
fuck's sake.
I know.
So
And
what's happening there? Who's he fighting?
fuck knows, they'll probably go through a list. And
That fight only
Gavaki,
got announced last week. Yeah, the fucking.
Yeah, no, literally,
man.
Box Nation had tweeted saying that they'd got the rights to the fight, and then literally about an hour later there was a tweet saying, and it's off. But
Me, man. Take
thing
me
is,
back and put a fucking nail gun into my head. Jesus Christ.
the problem with the question is, I mean, June the 4th is the date that's been muted, and I think it's genuinely something they are looking to do. And I don't mean to offend any Everton fans here when I say this, but if anyone who's listening has been to Goodison Park, it's a great atmosphere for football. It's a good old-fashioned football ground, but terrible for boxing. There are no Premier League grounds, probably apart from Bournemouth, or maybe I was trying to think of like some of the London smaller grounds that I could think could be worse. It's got struts. Yeah, like that sort of. It's got struts. It's got restricted views in multiple positions for football, let alone for boxing. If you're going to put boxing in a football stadium, it has to be something
Wembley.
modern. Has to be. It doesn't have to be Wembley necessarily, but it has
Wembley.
to be.
That's what I talk about. It's only speaking about Wembley. Fuck Goodison, it's always Wembley.
But Wembley has the same thing that the Etihad has. It's a circular built design, good views wherever you're sat. You need that for boxing. I think they had the problem when they put stuff on at Upton Park, which again is better, but still not exactly ideal. And people sat right far at the back of the stands, just don't get anything sort of a view. Goodison, Bellew in a world title fight, I don't necessarily mind that much, but he should have to travel for it. He's already been handed a world title shot in his hometown previously, didn't deliver. There's no reason why he can't go on the road and go for it. But Goodison is a very poor, from a viewing experience for a ticket buyer, I think it would be a really, really bad decision. But but they did it in a film, didn't they? So that means obviously that's what they're looking to try and copy.
Isn't it really? Bellew selling out a stadium, it's a huge ask, I think. I don't think it's in the realm of possibility.
no,
Especially when he's going to be against an Eastern European that no one's going to know.
Hey, at least if he goes on the road and loses, they can brush the loss under the carpet. I know they've already done that. Sorry.
Showing it.
Disgusting. One of the worst performances on away soil from a British fighter this century, and everyone's forgot about it. It was disgraceful.
Well, we haven't forgot about it, certainly.
Exactly. We'll keep the memory alive, Tony. You ran away from Adonis Stevenson, and that's why I've got him in my top 5, because he obliterated you, a scouse prick.
Oh, fuck's sake. That's listen, I don't need to call him a scouse prick. That's not
Yes,
fair.
there is.
That's not fair. I know a good couple of hubcap collectors, actually. They're not bad lads. They're not bad lads.
Sake. back to the belt situation. Someone in chat just said that our good friend Duradola is mandatory for the Droz Maccabi winner, so that belt's fucking tied up for ages. We've got Glavaki with the WBO. He's against Cunningham, I think, or was that fight off?
No,
And
that's
then
fixed on.
the mandatory for that is obviously Alexander Usyk.
So we're talking about a rematch with Hook as well, eh?
Well, yeah, and then obviously Hook wants it, and like we said, we've got the fucking unification with Lebedev and Ramirez, and I imagine Lebedev will win that quite comfortably, and I don't know if he's due any mandatories either. I imagine so. So yeah, Tony's going to be waiting for a very long fucking time.
How good would it be if Tony won a belt and his first mandatory was Usyk? That would be fucking brilliant. That would be awesome.
You are evil. You are evil. Right, next question. Kurt, this is from Boxing Analyst. Why does Hughie Fury get a pass? Calling out Joshua, then ducked him twice. Same goes for Peter. Good coach, but talks a load of bollocks.
Well, I have to agree. I mean, I like the Furies, but you can't talk about how they're going to get a top 10 and then bring who's the guy they're fighting again?
Christ, it's one of his.
Naji Aguilera, is it?
That's who it
Yeah,
was.
Christina's brother. I mean,
Genie in the bottle.
The fact is, I mean, Joshua gets hate simply because he's with Eddie Hearn, in my opinion, and Eddie Hearn hypes him up. That's why he gets a lot of the hate. Whereas Hughie's obviously with Peter, and everyone likes and respects Peter Fury. He talks a lot of sense as well. But the way they've hyped this opponent, and they're still not getting a good opponent. I mean, you got the question: well, is everyone avoiding Hughie Fury? They're talking about Alexander Usyk avoiding Hughie. This is the same guy that fought Pulev and stepped in at a day's notice to fight Tyson Fury, and Tyson actually pulled out of the fight. Yet he's ducking, Hughie Fury. It doesn't make sense to me. All these guys can't be ducking. It's either they're not offering the right money, which is probably the case, or they're just, hyping him up by using other people's names, that they're avoiding him. I got no problem with him developing and learning the game, but if they're going to start hyping him and talking about, fighting top guys, well, it's time to do that now, and I think after this one he needs to be in with someone decent. We're seeing Joseph Parker fight name guys, and Joshua's been in there, and he's gone in there with this Martin. You can say what you want about the title, we know it's a bogus title, but he's gradually stepping up every single time, and it's about time Hughie did that, because he's got a lot of potential, and we need to see him how he would do against someone decent and who's coming to win.
Andy, before we move on, have we made enough of Kurt's return to the podcast? Sorry, I'm not sure if we have. This is a man who's been missing. He's gone away. He's changed his life. He's got a job. We had to do an appeal for him to return last week, and he's back. And I think we need to make more of it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he needs to start getting the podcast uploaded a bit quicker, because I'm sick and tired of getting people complaining to me on a Monday morning. Where's the fucking podcast? Where's the fucking podcast?
Kurt, welcome back.
Thank you, Adam. As a Frotch fan, that means a lot.
Thank you,
Kurt. Bryn, Joey O asks, Charles Martin is fighting in the UK. Deontay Wilder going to Russia. Is it the end of selling money from the PBC? Basically, is the B and PBC mean broke?
I think the PBC is in terrible shape. I mean, and I mean, even HBO, there's been kind of a dearth of fights the last several weeks, and I think it largely has to do with they've got a lot of dead assets at HBO. The PBC, I mean, what's their legacy so far of the great fights they've put on television? I think they've blown through hundreds of millions of dollars so far, and is the sport better off for it? So I think they're in real trouble. There's potentially some big fights around the corner, but it's been a strange. I don't remember a couple months that have seemed as empty as these last two, and I think it largely just has to do with their budgets are just squandered right now. A lot of sort of toxic assets they can't get rid of, and you're seeing Arum having trouble putting together Lomachenko and Walters, which would be a tremendous fight. I mean, amongst diehard boxing fans at least. So I hope things can be turned around, but it seems difficult, at least in making it feasible at this point.
Well, I think one thing it shows, though, is that, first of all, everyone who's ever tried to monopolize boxing has failed. It looks as if this attempt at monopoly has failed. And secondly, I think it also might be a good thing because I don't think that they. I mean, when you say they're in trouble, I mean, then again, they did also bid over $5 million for the Wilder Povetkin fight. I mean, that doesn't seem like.
No, allegedly, Lou DiBella bid $5.2 million.
Well, yeah,
Cough.
they have to have a promoter though do it, because if they do it, it's a violation of the Ali Act. So, I mean, they use promoters sort of as like agents of the PBC, but theoretically they're not really agents of the PBC, that type of thing. But I think really, when they're bidding over $5 million for that fight, I mean, they're not in serious trouble, but I think that they can no longer offer the sort of crazy overpayment type money, and they're more, they sort of are now beholden to the same rules of economics that every other organization is beholden to, and I think that that's a good thing because it encourages, basically that they have to cooperate with other entities to make fights, and you're seeing that now. For instance, they've been talking about putting maybe some PBC fights, or excuse me, some PBC fighters maybe potentially appearing on HBO. There's been rumblings about that. So we might potentially be seeing maybe the fact that the PBC has gone through some of this money and now kind of has to tighten the purse strings a little bit means that we might actually see some more cooperation to make fights.
Okay.
Well, except a guy named Bob Arum is still breathing.
Evil never dies, mate. Evil never dies.
I don't see Arum going anywhere near Al Heyman. I mean, he can threaten to bring fighters over to Showtime. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I think that he's the one who went right out after Crawford's last victory and said he'd love to work with Al Heyman to make a Broner fight, because he realizes that if Pacquiao does in fact make good on his retirement promise, there isn't much for Crawford there except for the Bradley fight if Bradley wins. But what happens if Pacquiao wins and retires? Then what? I mean, Crawford is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, he's very promising, but he's not going to have any big fight there over for him on the top ranked side, and he's going to be wanting for opponents, I think.
What's your thought about why there is Bradley Pacquiao? Like, who is clamoring for that fight? Because I haven't met them or heard of them or even imagined them.
I don't mind it, but I would prefer maybe Sweet Tea to get maybe the winner, or hopefully have maybe got the fight before this one actually came off. So either Pacquiao or Bradley. But I'm not too down the fight.
I think Roach vetoed that fight. I don't think Roach ever wanted him to face Crawford.
Possibly.
That's my personal belief. I don't have any proof of that, but I just don't think that. I think they've thought, like, we beat Bradley twice, we could do it again, but I don't think they wanted any part of Crawford, who seems to be, young, hungry, on the rise, and very. He has the length, he has the speed, and I don't think that that stylistically is something that Roach was looking for.
I totally agree with you, and I mean, I guess we're going to see what Bradley is now that he's got the fireman's uniform on, to see how much he's on. I mean, I would pick Bradley in that fight, taking it, just with how old Pacquiao is and potential for an injury or something. It just seems like such a waste. If this is the way you go out, why would you take this fight? I mean, I totally agree. Crawford, I think, would have beaten him handily. I just think that's a terrible style matchup for Pacquiao at this stage, but Bradley just seems like it's very just an annoying opponent to choose when you consider some of the people who are out there that could, I don't know, it just would be nice to honor Pacquiao with having him go out with a fight that excites fans.
It's better than Andre Berto, though, I suppose, going out on Andre Berto.
What about going out on a fight he knows he can win?
Yeah. Oh, there's Steve. Steve, I've got a question for Sam Walker. Oh. On the back of the three poor fucking dog shit main events we've had, why is it that over the past year or so, boxing main events seem to lack entertainment or excitement?
Well, I think sometimes whenever we get the best guys in against each other, they can neutralise each other because they're both very good at what they do, and it's often the ones where the gunslingers, the guys who have technical deficiencies, defensive flaws, who are getting hit too often. That's why they're not elite. That's why they're producing better fights. I mean, the top main events, what are we looking at? I mean, are we going down to the levels of Skeet Eggington's, or are you talking the big American ones? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Crawford Lundy, for example, so that's a big one. I mean, that was a bit of a mismatch in that Crawford's obviously, a league or two above Lundy. Why was that fight made in the first place? The one last night, they neutralised each other. Is Matthews even world class?
Yeah.
Flanigan is. I mean,
Kovalev Pascal rematch.
well, I mean, I don't think that rematch should have took place in the first place. It was
No.
along the sort of lines of the Tarver Chad Dawson rematch and numerous other rematches we've seen. Saying that Kovalev could have been thrown in with worse opponents. I mean, when the intrigue in the fight lies, is he actually going to do physical damage to the guy, or is he going to stop him earlier? That says to me that it's not, a 50-50 main event. That's not a competitive match. So we all have a problem with the fights at the moment. We know that the competitive is lacking. Bryn's outlined the PBC, HBO. What's this new guy, Peter Nelson, doing at HBO? It's not making fights anywhere because there's Frigor. I mean, we've got Lomachenko, Walters, okay, fair enough. But I mean, there's no point in going down a rabbit hole.
Is that confirmed, that fight? And on HBO?
Just putting 2 and 2 together, to be honest with you. I mean, bloody well hope so. Well, if not, then HBO definitely need hanging out to dry.
Exactly, because the way I was reading it is that there was an agreement made, but they were still looking for a date, venue, and a fucking time.
I think it will be made, and I think it will end up on HBO. At the end of the day, if HBO are vetoing that, they're setting themselves a pretty high bar, aren't they? I mean, we know Bob Arum apparently is having meetings with this, is it Moonves or something? And Showtime people.
Showtime, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's courting them, but Bob Arum's a wily old fox. I'd be very surprised if Lomachenko Walters didn't end up on HBO if it gets made, and if it doesn't, then they seriously need to pull a finger out their arses and come up with something.
Yeah, because it'd be completely tragic if they actually allowed. I know it wasn't meant to be the main contender or opponent, but they have the likes of Ortiz Thompson headline HBO, regardless if it's boxing after dark or HBO regular. I don't know if they've got different channels or not. And then you pass up and potentially one of the I wouldn't say big fights. We haven't talked about, but for the hardcore,
Yeah.
Walters Lomachenko is a fight that we all want to fucking see because you've got a great amateur and you've got a guy who's a fucking monster at 126. So
someone's playing hardball there. I think I'd be very surprised if it wasn't made on HBO.
What pisses me off though is that if Dan Rayfield reports that HBO is having issues with the budgeting for this year for their fights and things like that, which to me says that apparently whoever was in, I mean, I guess this partially must be Hirschman's fault, but also maybe falls on Nelson as well. But it's like, Mayweather Pacquiao did 4.6 million pay-per-view buys, right? You're telling me that HBO Sports didn't fight with the network a little bit to say, hey, look, if you give us a chance so we can build these kind of events that, that generate this massive, massive, massive amount of money for the network, and then what do? It's like it seems as if HBO kept all their revenue for themselves, didn't reinvest any of it into HBO Sports and HBO Boxing, and now now they're having budgetary issues. Like how does the sports division create that kind of revenue for the company and not see some sort of reward with an increased budget in the following year? I don't know.
Hey Donny, it sounds like you're describing the situation in the UK.
How's that?
Well, make a load of money from pay-per-view on December the 12th and then deliver shit all.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what they've done here, and that's what they're doing over there as well.
Yeah. Paul, you still around, mate? We lost Paul.
No, I'm still here, mate. Still here. Sorry.
Right,
Just trying to unmute myself. I'm still here.
Stephen Antrobers asks, this will be right up your Straza anyway, why does all the Box Nation commentary and producing look awkward as fuck?
Because they give them very little to work with. So there's a fine balance between, when you watch some things on Sky and the table they're sat around looks like it was designed from a spaceship, and it's cost about 20 grand, and you've got 20 different pundits all in one room, and then another room you got someone else. Box Nation it's awkward because last night you had Buncey and the guy stood right next to the ring. Now, the problem with that was the music in the Echo Arena was on volume 11 out of 10, so they couldn't hear each other think half the time. And it's just not very smooth. The cutaways aren't very good, and it's purely because they're running on a much smaller production staff. Now, for any of the guys that have either sat ringside at a show or have been at a Matchroom show or a Sky Sports show, it's a small army of people in that production. There is so much going on, and the prep work and everything else is huge. Now, I've done the same and sat at Box Nation shows, and it's just not there. Everything's on a much smaller scale. the benefit of that is it means it doesn't feel quite as robotic and forced. Like some of the stuff the guys come out with and some of the tangents that especially Bunsen and Lillis go off on is quite good. It's nice to see. You certainly wouldn't get that from the very well rehearsed lines. There's certainly no sort of auto cue which you get when Johnny Nelson stood ringside, but the look and feel of it is just much cheaper. And like I say, it's not as though Warren doesn't have the experience to do it. If you watch the older Hatton fights and Kawasaki fights, he knows how to put a show on, and Box Nation should do as well. But everything from the entrances to the music in the arena. I mean, we joke about this before, but it's just almost everything seems like it's in a time warp, and everything seems like it's been done on a budget, and that's because they are in a time warp and it is on a budget. So it's not going to change. They do it their way, and Matchroom do it their way. And I hate using the word, but as a product, how it looks on the eye, one looks much better than the other. Whether the fights are better, as we've seen on numerous occasions, that's not always the case. But if it looks good in the first place, that does not help.
Yeah, you can wrap the dog shit up in a nice sort of bit of wrapping paper and put a little bow on top of it.
It reminds me of the darts. If you watch the PD, whatever it's called, and then go on BBC One and watch the World Championships, it's like 1970s, with the guys. It's very cheap, but it's the budget. That's the problem, as Paul said. It's just, they can only do the best they can, and to be fair, they do a good job, but it's just you can't compare the budgets. And Sky, as Hedy likes to tell us, the production is very good.
Well, do you remember when Dave did it? And Dave had, the similar sort of operation. They were stood around a table pretty much at ringside, and it was because obviously Dave weren't going to invest lots of money because it's a one-time thing. But Box Nation, they put on shows frequently throughout the year in Britain. They should have a proper studio setup that's transportable. They should have more of a team. But again, it just comes down to money. I mean, it's little daft. I know this sounds really, really trivial, but like Sky, they have like massive cases of water and stuff and food for the guys, like the presenters. And at Box Nation, as I've been to, it's just not been there. There's certain levels to putting on a TV show, which is what it is. End of the day, it's a sport, but it's a TV show. And Box Nation, even though they've been going for quite a few years, they just don't seem to have quite got it. And I think the biggest problem they've had is they've not really tied down a commentary team and a punditry team, which they like. For all that we complain about Nick and Jim, generally that's what you get pretty much every show, and you know what you're going to have. Box Nation are trying and testing different things. Obviously, when John Rawlins is on, he's brilliant. I didn't think that Alex Stephen did the best job last night. I think he has been better in the past, but just having random pundits, there's no real consistency. They don't have their version of an Ed Robinson, if that makes sense. They don't have someone you can sort of go to as someone who's going to get the information out, he's going to put across a useful point of view, and he's going to be there every single week.
I think, Paul, that's because they haven't got their designated team. Are they more like sort of freelancers, contracting, maybe say Rawlins off doing something else like the darts or something, and then...
Well, Rawlins doing Crufts next week.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Woodall got drafted.
Better production there.
It's availability, isn't it?
I was going to say, Steve...
Well, it seems pretty simple to me. I mean, I think that Sky, from what I can tell, is made for, basically cultivating the casual audience, and things like production quality, is the kind of thing that will lure them in a little bit. Whereas there are no casuals for Box Nation because it's a subscription network specifically for boxing. So it's not like there's nobody who has Box Nation who's going to cancel it because, the production quality isn't that good. They have the channel because they're boxing fanatics and they want to watch boxing, and they could give a shit about the sort of niceties of a aesthetically pleasing production.
You got to remember as well, most of them are getting paid in IOUs as well, so they're not going to put that much effort in, are they? Let's be fair.
Andy, move on.
Yeah, I've got a ton of other questions here, so I'm just going to cherry pick 4 more questions before we move on to Bellew of the week. Then we've got a discussion because there's absolutely no fights to discuss next week, so we'll need to think of something. Thanks to everyone who sent in the Twitter questions. Bryn, Louis Ashton asks, Fury beat Klitschko. The WBO have then ordered Fury against Ortiz, and if Fury drops the belt, is it considered a duck? How would people view that?
I think Ortiz and Fury would be a very fun fight to watch. I mean, I personally would favor Ortiz quite handily in that fight. I mean, I give Fury credit for fighting Klitschko, but What did Klitschko, like, did he throw 120 punches that entire fight? It was,
Shot the bed.
yeah, it was pretty jaw-dropping. How just hopeless a performance he offers the moment it's a competitive fight where his opponent can reach him and he can't just force the behind-the-bed X-rated maneuver into his own crotch that he seems to love to do, and referees just give him free license to do it fight after fight after fight without even warning him about it. So, and I mean, he's another one that the Rayfields of the world just cream over for his performances, and then like lay into other guys for being boring. I have a lot of respect for both the Klitschko brothers. I think Vitaly was the better fighter, but God, those fights were boring for the most part. So at least Fury injected his personality, which is, I mean, granted, kind of Trump-ish in terms of scope, but certainly amusing. And I hope he's game to fight some of these major people in the division. I'd love to see him fight Joshua or Ortiz. I think it's a bad sign if he ducks Ortiz. So I mean, what do you guys think about it?
I think he beats Ortiz. What I've noticed with Ortiz sometimes is he needs to set himself before he throws his punches. And if you look at the Fury against Klitschko, the way he moved about the ring, I think he would give Ortiz serious problems, especially trying to land shots. So he'd be easily turned as well, eh? So I would probably go with Fury in that fight.
I thought we had something going with the Leonard connection.
Yeah, I know. But I got stung with the Fury Klitschko thing. You know, I was shocked as to how easy that was. And as I said to Tommy as well when we went to Manchester for Frampton Quig, we're chatting about this fight. And one thing that really pissed me off at no end on that fight alone was the fact that you got a world heavyweight champion who has reigned for 10 years, and he surrendered his title like that. He didn't even once dare to fucking come out the traps and just say, "Oh fuck, my title's on the line here. I need to go and win it." He never done that. He never fucking put his life on the line to go and defend his title.
Yeah.
You know, he shat it. He shat the bed and he shat the performance. Fury fucking owned them from day dot, because from the weigh-in to the high shoes to the ring canvas, that was just a guy who just struck insecurity, and Fury crawled inside his head, camped out, and took a big shit there and walked away.
No, I agree. I thought it was totally shameful for a heavyweight that some boxing writers were holding up as an all-time great, and his dominance that was like Joe Louis, and it was like, come on, like, the division has been basically empty. He hasn't put on any really important fights, particularly throughout his career. Easily my fallback guy after watching Leonard get knocked out to watch the highlight reel of Klitschko getting knocked out. I will never forget him fighting that South African fighter who looked like the reincarnation of Ernest Hemingway, just blowing through him in front of Vitaly and then sort of grunting to the audience. I mean, Klitschko is a very strange legacy to me.
Kurt, we're giving your man a bit of stick, mate. You need to stick up for him here.
No, well, I was the first to criticise him for his performance against Fury. It was terrible, and he totally deserved the loss. And as I said before, I think that's the worst way to lose his title after such a long dominant spell. If he just got knocked out, that happens. They're big guys, and we all know he's been down before. But to just lose your title on a whimper like that, and that's why the rematch, he has to perform better. Whether he loses again or not, he has to perform better. And I'm whether you pick Fury to do it again, I definitely think it'll be a better fight, and I think he will be looking to score more bigger punches and to go for the knockout, because I think he knows. I don't think he realised just how good Fury was, and I think he knows he's in with a better fight than he imagined. And by him also letting his hands go, it also opens opportunities for Tyson Fury as well, who looked like if he stepped on the gas, maybe there's a stoppage opportunity for him, and I think we'll definitely get a better fight.
Adam, Andy Neal asks, who was more wasted, Robin Reed or James Nesbitt?
I've still not seen the Nesbitt thing.
You were at the arena, you were at the fight. But they didn't play it loud. It wasn't on the loud. You didn't need to hear it, mate. You just need to see his face.
Oh, okay. But I'm definitely going to say Robin Reed. Like I say, he had a fucking brilliant time last night, Robin Reed.
Oh,
I mean, he was never the same after Froch bombed him out. He was never the same person, to be honest.
He was shot by that point, though, for fuck's sake.
He was half dead by then.
Exactly. He was shot to shit by that point. Let's see if I get two more questions. Two more questions here, if I can find them. Steve, Danny Robson asks, what fight do you regret the most not happening or it happened too late? His is Pretty Boy Floyd against Prime Mosley.
That's a good one, actually. I was reading Tris Dixon's book about Floyd Mayweather, and Tris Dixon made exactly the same point. That's a really good one, and there's a couple of fights of Floyd's like that as well. Yeah, Prime Mosley at lightweight, all the speed, undefeated. That would have been a really good fight, and it definitely happened too late.
Bruce Tyson.
Tyson, yeah, that's another one as well. Sometimes we do get them, don't they, when there's a blemish on the record. Or
Bo Tyson.
As good as they are.
Bo Lewis, I suppose.
Bo Lewis. Well, I mean, we all know the story about that, like. But yeah, often they do happen too late. But the Mayweather Mosley is a really, really good example of that.
And finally, the final question, I'll give it to our most favourite returning son, Andre Kurt Ward. Andre, this is for Rab. He says, who's the most likely opponent for Billy Joe Saunders after the dangerous Max Bursick? Triple G, Tommy Langford, or the guy who just unblocked my sink?
Well, it definitely won't be Golovkin. It won't be anyone good. It's going to be a Frank Warren WBO special, I think, and that'll be the case for a long time to come, because that's what Warren has done before, and he's obviously got history for it, and he'll do it again. He'll talk all these fights, and he just won't do it. And I like Billy Joe Saunders, but I'm extremely disappointed in it. People can use the excuse, it's going to be his first defence, he deserves a soft one, but you just know it's going to be the same over and over again. These crappy WBO shitty defences. This is why the WBO has struggled to get legitimacy for so many years, because history has shown that these European guys get these bouts and they just defend against utter garbage, and it's just the case. I'm not saying he has to go straight in with Golovkin, but you made a great offer to fight Golovkin in New York. I believe it was like $2 million. Take the fight. I mean, why not? I mean, he's from a travelling background. They say they fight anyone. Fury's shown that he'll fight anyone. Billy Joe Saunders has always said he'll fight anyone, and to be honest, I think he said himself he can't beat Golovkin, or he doesn't believe he has a chance against Golovkin. But you're going to be $2 million richer, and you're going to go in there against a great fighter who knows where he'll be ranked down the years to come if Golovkin carries on. But to turn it down and people to defend it, I just don't get it, because the same people who slag off Deontay Wilder and slag off Floyd Mayweather and slag off all these fighters, they defend the likes of Carl Frampton and Billy Joe Saunders and Scott Quigg because they like them. You can't do it. The fact is, you can't apply different rules. If a guy's out obviously ducking a guy, as these guys are, or they're openly avoiding them and will make any excuse never to fight them, and you're patting them on the back and telling them, basically doing it Eddie Hearn and making excuses, then you're part of the problem. These guys need to face the best, and they're not doing it.
Cheers for that, mate. Now, Bellew of the Week is back. I've got quite a strong lineup this week, and before I go to the lads, I'll just briefly rattle through what I've got. The first one goes to Box Nation. This comes with George Reynolds. Last night, as an advertisement for Flanigan against Matthews, they advertised it online as the WBO World Flyweight Championship.
Yep.
Don Broadhurst. This is actually the Tamworth Herald, and it's relating to Don Broadhurst. He's come back. Now, I think he's flying to flyweight these days. I think he was a former bantamweight at some point. Anyway, he says he's basically looking to get, whoever the opponent on his radar is Chocolatito Gonzalez, and he states here, the flyweight division in Britain looks wide open, and even at world level, there's nobody that faces me, not even Roman Gonzalez. I know everyone says he's the pound for pound number one, but I was a world class amateur, and I want to test myself against the best in the world as a pro as well. I'm big and strong at 8 stone, but those 3 extra pounds at the higher level makes me a big difference. I was winning at 8 stone 3 pounds, so nobody said to me, Don, we better change things. I know now that I'm not naturally big enough and strong enough to box at the highest level at 8 stone 3 pounds. I believe if I'd boxed my whole career at 8 stone, I would be a world champion by now, and I can fulfill my promise and potential at 8 stone.
Is he not operating out of Australia nowadays?
Is he?
Was he in Thailand? I heard it was in Thailand.
He went somewhere away from the UK.
Yeah, I tell you what, look up on YouTube,
country,
Don Broadhurst against Lee Haskins, and then take all those comments into context.
Yeah,
that was one of the worst fights ever known to man.
Well, I work literally next door to the Tamworth Herald. Literally, I can see them from the store. So I'm going to have a word with them about that awful thing they put in their newspaper.
Good. Next one goes for the Bleachers Report. They've got an article stated, Lemieux misses weight, fight with De La Rosa cancelled, and they've got a picture of Gennady Golovkin next to him.
Triple G!
And Golovkin responds, you know that's a photo of me, don't you? Sky Sports, again, the weekly input from them. You know how they've got the catch-up TV. Sky Sports catch-up says it's a rewind of Khan versus Barrera, but in the info bar it says it's Vladimir Klitschko against Corey Sanders. Adam Booth, double standards, he stated back in 25th of February this year, the use of banned PEDs and steroids in full contact combat sports should be a criminal offence. And then just under, maybe 2 weeks later, with the news that Kid Galahad has returned from his Stanazol ban, he's tweeted back out, says, welcome back, Barry, great news. And finally, goes to Simon K 1974 on Twitter, says here about Tyson Fury, biggest fraud to ever have held a belt. He fought no one and has been his whole career, and his only opponent is an aging champion. Hashtag Tyson Phony. So that's what I've got this week. What about you guys?
I've got one. It goes to Kugan Cassius for basically the 2 interviews he did with Billy Joe and Frank Warren this week, equating to approximately 26 minutes of footage. Did not ask one question about Triple G or the Triple G situation, which I thought was a clear duck, to be honest. And the discussion with Billy Joe Saunders about his opponent Berzak of the 22-minute interview lasted about 3 minutes. And in that 3 minutes, Kugan said the words, I think this is a good test for you, Berzak. So that's what Kugan thinks of of Billy Joe's opponent. I mean, I'm normally a big fan of everything what they do, but I just think to completely skirt around the Triple G situation and the way that Frank and Billy Joe went about that, they deserve some stick, and they definitely deserve. They had questions to answer, and questions were not even asked.
Okay. Any other nominations, guys?
I have a couple of light ones, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, one from Box Nation made me laugh. Whenever you're on Sky and you click on the little eye that describes the fights and who's on, or any TV program. For the George Jupp fight, I like the way they put George Jupp lands a dream shot at the interim WBO super featherweight title. I can just imagine Mr. Jupp sort of pounding the heavy bag as a youngster. Never mind Ali or Olympic gold. The interim WBO super featherweight title would have been on his mind, I'm sure. But it was a dream shot, and he did okay. But yeah, Box Nation. Also, a backup for Sky Sports, just for the whole Braehmer Gootneck show. Absolutely pointless experience. I mean, the lethargy of the whole thing was just crippling. The commentators sounded bored. The studio guests were just half asleep. It was just a painful thing all around. I watched Tobias Webb against some guy for 3 rounds, and after that I was just flicking backwards and forwards. It was why they were showing that fight, I don't know. The whole thing, nobody was interested at all. So that's
that is Sky's international content just now, showing Surland event, fucking boxing events.
They're all dying on their feet. I mean, the commentators were just completely out of it. Nobody cared.
Germany, actually, as I said a couple of weeks back, once the likes of Abraham, Sturm and Huck retire, there's nothing coming up behind there. Absolute zero. That kind of fills me with any kind of German boxing's in a good place. It's fucking not. It's dying. Anything else, guys? Any nominations?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One from the Bleacher Report, who put a story out about David Lemieux missing weight for his fight. Oh, you didn't hear that one, so. I didn't hear that one.
I did. I
thought that was a really good one as well. I'm upset.
There was one with Golovkin's picture and Golovkin or someone.
Yeah, that was the one. Sorry, I must have been doing something else. But the other one, again, I've already missed this one, is when Frank Warren's Twitter team announced the Rigondeaux fight was off. They tweeted, and it's easy, one word can change a sentence, "We like you feel let down. but at the end of the day, we have a quality domestic world title fight to look forward to. So instead of we feel like you let you down, it was we like you feel let down. So that's kind of rubbing it in the sort a little bit. And without going into details, a gigantic Belly of the Week nomination to Richard Maynard, Frank Warren's press officer. You know what you did, and it's disgusting.
What was it? Tell us.
Oh, I'm not going to talk about his business, but it's to do with certain reporters who reported facts and then were banned from the show Saturday night.
You're talking about Elliot Foster getting banned for fucking reporting the truth.
Yeah, wrote a factual story based on a Facebook post from Rigondeaux's trainer, and his credentials were removed. And fans and people that listen to this show sit and wonder why boxing reporters or some boxing reporters don't ask certain questions and don't try and get answers or try and dig up real stories. It's because someone like Elliot did the research, got the story, posted it out, and he got penalised for it. And I think hopefully that answers people's gripes at certain national journalists and certain online writers who just don't seem to want to question things, because this is what can happen.
Yep.
Can I just throw Andy in just briefly? I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but just a note to Jamie Simpson. He sent us a heartfelt message on the Facebook message board earlier. It was actually a private message. He's really upset. He's one of these guys who bought the hotel, the tickets, blah, 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 I think based on the Rigo being fighting. And he's gone into a whole tale of woe about, he's not been able to get the hotel money back and unhelpful people on the phone, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically a fuck boxing sort of post. He's done with it, the sport. He's not going anymore. So commiserations to Mr. Jamie Simpson. Hopefully we'll be able to win him back.
Was that for last night's show?
Yeah, he sent a whole diatribe, so he's really upset.
We should maybe read that out actually by way of an obituary for boxing coming up, because the way it's going, I couldn't believe some of the guys, your comments today. It's not you specifically, but some of the guys were just raging at last night's fucking boxing. I couldn't believe it.
We just want a good fight, mate. That's all I think. All of us on this podcast now, we just want, and it's got to happen. I'm looking at the schedule and I'm trying to see a fight which I think that's going to be a real good tear up. And there's nothing that. The one that will be the death knell for me is if Canelo Khan, which on the surface there's no reason at all why that can't be a real sort of all-action fight that ends with a stoppage. If Canelo wins that wide on points, boxing off the back foot, I think I might just crawl up in the corner and cry. We need a bit of excitement in our lives.
I tell you how bad the excitement's go for boxing sometimes. I've actually dug out my Bernard Hopkins career collection and working my way through that just now.
You'll be on the John Ruiz one next.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Andy. When all you lot go and watch,
Hopkins was a good fighter when he was younger. Sorry, when you go, Paul.
That's what I was going to say. When all you lot go and pick fights that you want to go and watch, you don't pick anything from the last couple of years. That's the problem, and it's the same for me. When I put this thing on Twitter the other day about what's the fight you've watched the most amount of times, and I got tons of answers. There wasn't a single. I think the nearest one was probably Froch Groves 1, but nothing. Pacquiao Marquez 4, and then everything else was old. Your go-to fights will be old fights, and that's a problem. We need some that you think, that fight that happened this year, that was fantastic. The fight of the year should be a real difficult. When it comes to end of the year awards, we should be sat there arguing amongst ourselves because there's so many good nominations, and we're 3 months into the year and there's been nothing. So we're already a quarter of the way down, and we've got nothing so far to show for it.
I just have a question for you guys that's apropos of what you were talking about. If you guys were able to pick 3 candidates for another legendary nights like that HBO series, what would they be?
Probably Pacquiao Marquez.
Good choice.
Barrera against Morales, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely that.
Israel Vasquez.
Oh, Vasquez Marquez.
Oh, they were brilliant fights, weren't they?
The first 3 were good. The fourth one was a
I'll tell you what one I'd like the HBO for a fight is the possibly the last great heavyweight fight, Klitschko against Lennox Lewis. I think that'd be a good legendary night fight.
Very good one. I guess Castillo
Morales
would be also another good one. But I agree that Lewis Klitschko fight was very interesting.
Because you'd have all the aftermath as well, wouldn't you, with the cut and the crowd booing, and you get the response from
10 days notice you took that fight on as well.
I also think Pavlik Taylor, I think it may not be as high profile as some of those fights, but it was an enthralling fight to watch, and the story behind both men really, and obviously what they've gone on to do in their lives, both sort of the livelihoods going one more extreme than the other, but both going certainly down the wrong path.
They're both
I think that would,
really.
yeah, I think that would make a very interesting one.
Be a good fight between them now.
They may get to fight each other soon in the prison canteen.
Well, we can actually talk about this, but let's get the belly of the week out the road first. So if there's no other nominations, I've got Kugan Cassius, Box Nation twice, Don Broadhurst, Bleachers Report, Sky Sports twice, Adam Booth, Simon on Twitter, Frank Warren, and Richard Maynard. Adam, who gets your vote?
Don Broadhurst.
Donnie?
Wait, come back to me real quick, sorry.
Kurt?
I'll go with Richard Maynard after what they did and what I've heard.
Paul, you the same? Richard Maynard?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Bleacher Report's funny because I always like when websites put the wrong pictures, but inexcusable. Absolutely, Richard Maynard.
Steve?
It's got to be Don Broadhurst for me after that. That's brilliant.
Don Broadhurst. Bryn?
I'm going to agree with the last submission. Sustained.
Don Broadhurst. Okay. Donnie?
Broadhurst.
Broadhurst. So
Go on, Don.
there's not really much need for me to vote this week because Don Broadhurst has got 4 votes off the panel. So congratulations, Don. You are a new Bellew the Week award winner.
And just another answer to Bryn's question as well. What for the legendary nights? How about Margarito Cotto one?
Oh yeah,
that's a great one.
You are talking.
Well played. Well played.
You are talking. It's pure sex to me, Kurt, just now, man. Oh.
What
Great
about
fight.
Ika Biabuchi and Chris Bird?
Oh. What about Biabuchi's entire career?
Oh,
He's been deported. He's been deported now, hasn't he? What's he doing?
He'll be fighting in Nigeria or something like that.
'Cause I know they kicked him out pretty quick, didn't they?
He's supposed to be on the Pacquiao undercard, wasn't he? They were talking about at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. When did the deporting happen? Because I thought they let him stay.
Oh, I remember it was going to appeal or whatever it was, but I'll tell you what, if he's been bombed out, they dealt with him quicker than the Mexicans anyway, I'll tell you that.
Where was he incarcerated? Not that it really matters. I'm just curious.
So was it around 2000? Was it? He was in 2000 and something. He did it right.
Where were they? Where were they?
Nevada, I believe.
Yeah,
Oh,
Las
was it? Right.
Yeah, I think that's where he had the hooker he imprisoned in his closet or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. But
He was just trying to get his money's worth.
I think
Nice.
I think what really did him in was the fact he kidnapped some little kid or something and he smashed his car and left the kid
Someone's really
paralysed or something.
own children as well, or so, there was something going on really weird.
He had a bad week, lads. You know, we all had bad weeks, and sometimes you end up locking a prostitute in a bedroom in a cupboard, and sometimes you don't, and that's just how life can go sometimes.
Calling yourself El
Maybe
Presidente.
Kid Galahad's brother did it. That's what I reckon.
By the way, can I just give a shout out to Tom Gray of Ring Magazine, who's trying to get Kid Galahad interview, and to be honest, Tom, I did put some information to him, so hopefully he does press him on the issue because he needs answers, and if Kid Galahad wants to make us believe that he's a clean fighter, he's not taking steroids, and roll with VADA, remove all doubt. Same goes for any other you fuckers out there juicing and stuff like that. You're going to get caught eventually. You're maybe on the designer stuff map that we can't test for or whatever, but one of these days your car's going to get called, your hat's going to give up or something like that. It's not worth the fucking hassle.
This is why the sport is looked upon by people who are not fans of boxing. The sport is looked upon as a joke. You got all these titles, you got all these weight divisions, you got all the bullshit, and you've got people failing drug tests and then going on to fight for titles. You got a guy like Larry Olabamiwa who has about 27 different performance enhancing drugs in his system. He has banned for life and it's reduced. And he comes back and boxes. Kid Galahad says he has never admitted that he cheated. He's still to this day, and he comes back as a boxer who's never admitted to cheating. But who cares? You know, he's a British fighter, so the British fans will get behind him. It's not right. You know, all these other guys, you know, whether you're a fan or not, they should be, you know, if you want to be of the opinion that they've served their ban and they've come back, that's fine. But he hasn't served his ban. He's got it reduced for what? No one knows. and he's not even admitted to what he did. He's blamed his brother who signed an affidavit, his brother who is a criminal anyway, so who's going to believe a word he says? But what's stopping anyone now from saying this? What's stopping any drug cheat from saying, well, someone spiked my drink, this person did it, that person did it? The fact is, I'm not denying that people have probably taken things accidentally. Enzo Maccarinelli, I don't believe he's a drug cheat at all. He took something, he was naive, and he took something stupidly, to aid his weight loss. He didn't realise, that's what I believe. But in this case, and in case of Enzo, you've got to take responsibility. You put it in your system, so you've got to take your ban. And I think Kid Galahad has not owned up to it. And the fact that he's come up with this excuse is the same as the kid who says his dog ate his homework. I mean, it's bullshit, and he should be banned for a lot longer, I think.
Right, I know Bryn and maybe Donnie's want to discuss Canelo. Just to let listeners know about the Showtime announcement. Now, obviously, HBO got a bit of shit earlier on there for their lack of programming, shall we say. But Showtime seem to have announced some good fights coming up over the course of the summer anyway. 9th of April, we'll see AJ against Charles Martin and Lee Selby against Eric Hunter. April 16th, they'll show Gary Russell against Paddy Highland and Josie Pedraza against Stephen Smith. April 30th sees James DeGale against Rogelio Medina. I think he replaces Jose Euskatagi. And Badou Jack, Lucian Bute with the potential of the winners facing off in unification. Demetrius Andrade returns on June 1st, and I think Ruslan Provodnikov faces off against John Molina. Keith Thurman and Sean Porter's rearranged for June 25th, and I think Abner Mares faces Jesus Cuellar on the undercard. And obviously the news of Beyonce Wilder fighting off against Alexander Povetkin. And there's been word doing the rounds that Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz Control have basically agreed to fight sometime late this summer, potentially maybe late July, early August. So some good fights coming up there, guys. Obviously you've got Canelo coming up on HBO as well. So out of that list, I take so you'll be looking forward to Canelo, I take it. Donnie. This is your chance.
Silence.
Is anyone else picking Khan like me?
I might be taking Khan in that fight. I mean, narrowly.
Yeah.
I really like Khan. I know a lot of people don't, but I think he would have given a much better fight to Mayweather than Pacquiao would have, even if Pacquiao was healthy. I think he fights to win. I think he's got reach. I think he's got the speed. And I think the fact that he goes out there and actually does try to win fights, win rounds, and throw with bad intentions could have been problematic for Mayweather. So I think with Canelo, I think he's either going to sort of his hand speed could give Canelo problems, but I think it probably is going to lead to Khan getting knocked out. But I think it's going to be a very exciting fight.
Yeah.
Steve.
I was just going to say I think there's a good chance he could get knocked out if he stands and tries to trade and tries to prove that his chin's all that like he has done in the past, and then he gets knocked out. There's a strong possibility he gets knocked out, but I just have a feeling it might go the same way, maybe a bit like a Fury Klitschko, as in, yeah, he's doing okay for the first few rounds, he's giving his opponent a lot of problems, and then all of a sudden by the 8th round, 9th round, why is so-and-so not doing anything? Why is Canelo, 10th round, 11th round? Sometimes the fights go that way. All of a sudden, what we're expecting to happen doesn't happen, and Khan's bagging the rounds, and the opponent's just not getting there. And it's just the way I foresee it. I've been wrong hundreds of times, and happy to be wrong again, but I just fancy Khan to win this one. I really think he's going to do it.
I think you guys are on the crystal meth, you must be.
Walter White's been selling them some blue crystal meth, I think. For me, I just can't see how Khan survives the rounds without getting tagged hard, and he can't take a shot. I don't buy into it that he's putting on weight, so he's got a better chin. He always says that until he gets chinned, and then he says it again in the next weight class. I just think the guys who give Canelo trouble, i.e. Lara, Mayweather, they use a hell of a lot of movement, a lot of foot movement. Khan doesn't do that. Khan, he still has that amateur style where he throws a lot of flurries, dazzling hand speed, like Bryn said. I mean, his hand speed is incredible still. But how many of those punches are really thrown with any bad intentions, and how many are really Canelo, is he going to respect? I just think it's not going to take long for Canelo to realise this guy doesn't hit anything to worry me with. And like I said, Khan, unlike the other two guys, I think he's going to be there for Canelo to hit. And remember, Danny Garcia, who is very slow of foot speed, he was able to get close enough because Khan just makes silly errors. And I think with Canelo, he might not be the quickest with his feet, but he has got quick hands. And I think once he gets close to Khan, he's going to unload, and there's no way he can take the power of that. I'm not saying Canelo's a massive, devastating puncher, but for this against Khan, who's not used to these kind of punches, I think it's too much for him. But I say, full credit for him for taking the fight.
I just think he needs to box the fight of his life, and he needs to stay off the ropes. But as you say, there's the extra, I don't know what extra 5-6 pounds he's putting on. In fact, more than that, actually, about 10-11 pounds. Anyway, it's just, I'm thinking about the lines. Is he putting on too much muscle? Is it going to affect him later on in the fight? I mean, we know Canelo can't fight hard for 12 rounds. He's got to pace himself. Can, jab, couple of right hands and get out of distance and that. But is he got, the intellect not to get too greedy? And is he going to be able not to throw the right hand, the right uppercut from fucking mid-distance and then get countered with the left hook? Because that's what he done with Garcia. You still see him make defensive errors. He still hasn't learned how to fight on the inside. And if it does go on the inside, Canelo's going to massage those ribs like a motherfucker, and he's going to fold at some point, maybe late in the fight. But I'd be deeply surprised if Khan won this on points.
I think that Khan, though, tends to make mistakes when he's not afraid, right? When he is sort of taking things for granted. But I think he knows, being in the ring with such a much bigger man, that I think he's going to be wary of every single punch that Canelo throws. And in response to Kurt's point, I mean, Khan has fast feet. We haven't seen him use it to the extent of like constant lateral movement the way, say, Lara does. But I think that has to be in Virgil Hunter's game plan for Khan going into this fight, because they know that Canelo has trouble cutting off the ring. We've seen this before, and that he's not very good at it. And I think if they exploit that weakness, and Khan does have the reach, where ideally he's going to be walking him into punches, hitting him and then getting away, hitting him and then getting away. And one thing that Khan does have is a tremendous gas tank. He has the ability to throw tons and tons of punches, fast punches, and he can keep up a very, very rigorous pace for 12 rounds. So if he can do that, I think he does have a very good chance. Like Andy said, he will have to box the fight of his life, but I think that Canelo's inability to cut off the ring, unless he substantially improves that, but we haven't seen it as of yet, I think that Khan has a very, very good chance. I'm going to pick him to win. Yeah, I'm a fan, and obviously that's probably motivating that somewhat, but I think that anyone who dismisses this as just a complete mismatch is way off in that assessment. I think that Khan is going to be a dangerous opponent for him. And I could entirely foresee a situation where maybe if Khan does lose by knockout, he'll probably be up on the cards when it happens. If he gets chinned and gets knocked out, I wouldn't doubt that, at least on fair cards, that he would be ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Even if Khan boxes the fight of his life, he still will probably get robbed on the cards anyway. That's the sad thing. But I think he obviously gets huge credit from. Yeah, even if he dislike Amir Khan, I think you got to give him nothing but credit for taking the fight. The odds are against him. He's going in there against the guy. It's very hard to beat on points. I mean, we all saw Mayweather shut him out and still get a draw on one card. So I think it's such a tough ask for him. But he's going in there to he's going in there to win. And should he win, he's only got Golovkin as a mandatory, so why not?
Yeah,
actually, Khan came out today and says if he wins, he'll fight Golovkin.
My fucking hairy hole, no chance is he fighting Golovkin, man. Is he really that fucking stupid? He's going to fight Gennady Golovkin.
He is that stupid. He would definitely do it. I've spent a bit of time with Khan. He wants greatness. That's what I like about him. Is I think Golovkin would destroy him in 2 rounds, but. Yeah. I think he's got huge balls, and he told me early on, like, I want to be remembered as somebody that fans, like what boxing used to be. So I really applaud that about Khan.
If Khan fought Golovkin after he gets put to sleep, he'd wake up Jewish. It'd be such a horrific beating, wouldn't it? His brain would be total.
I don't even know what that means, but I tremendously enjoyed it.
Well, put it this way: if he was to fight Golovkin the date that he's meant to be fighting Canelo, he'd be fucking knocked out through Ramadan.
Wait, Brent, when did you spend time in the con camp?
He was stuck in Vancouver for like.
Oh, I remember this. This was for the Maidana fight, I think.
That's right.
Visa problems.
So I heard about this when I was still living there, and I just called up Freddie Roach, and he's like, "Yeah, there's visa issues. Just come over. We're sparring." And he was sparring local kids, and I mean, these guys were so petrified of him. Like the speed differential was really fun to actually spend time with him and go to dinner a few times. And I don't know that I was a fan of him before, but spending time with him, I really liked him. We talked a lot about Mario Kindlin, and there was a bullshit rematch from that where Khan went to Cuba and stuff like that. But I just liked his spirit, and I've just seen him maintain it throughout. I think he's changed a little bit and become a little more materialistic after some of these knockouts he suffered. I mean, I thought he was winning the Garcia fight. I thought he was dominating that fight until he got caught with that blind hook. Full credit to Garcia for landing it, but Khan has had a pretty frustrating couple years with these fights he's trying to get, but he's trying to get these fights, and when he does fight, I think he fights to win every second of every round, and a lot of these elite fighters don't fight that way. They try to protect a reputation, protect a record. They don't want to get exposed or susceptible to getting knocked out. It doesn't matter how many times Khan has been knocked down or knocked out. I mean, even his fight against Maidana, huge balls to survive that round. Like
Joe Cortez helped him out, though.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, I'm just giving the guy credit. That guy's chin is terrible, and still he goes out there and can't not punch. He's always going for the kill, and it's exciting to see somebody with such tremendous hand speed and such an awful chin. It just creates drama and tension. I just find him very fun to watch. I mean, I didn't like the Berto fight particularly, but for the most part, I think he's a very exciting fighter to watch.
Remember when after he got his clock cleaned with that blind hook that you're talking about, and then the next round, any reasonable fighter would just try to tie up, get away, and like he came out there and just see what he fucking hit Garcia with a 3-punch combination and went straight to war. Of course, it was the exactly wrong thing to do if you're trying to win the fight, but I think at that point, really, he hadn't learned a lot of the sort of, the tactics that Hunter's taught him now. And so his answer to this was, well, I'm not, I might as well go out on my shield. But, like you said, a lot of fighters would have packed it in, and he did try to fight to win. Maybe he didn't fight intelligently, but he always comes to fight. He always comes to win. That's why I love Khan.
Yeah, I admire it.
The problem with the people that are picking Amir Khan to win or having a chance really overestimate his stamina and his endurance. I think the idea that he can run and box for 36 minutes just isn't true. Canelo will catch up to him at some point because Khan will end up standing still, and if they end up trading at any point, then he's going to get knocked out. But I think Khan will be in it. He'll be lively for a couple of rounds, but he's not technically good enough, and he doesn't have the physical endurance to outrun Canelo. And it's not like Canelo's a slouch, Mayweather made it look very easy when he fought him, but we're talking different levels. I think much props to Khan for taking it, but Canelo should knock him out.
Well, I'm just curious, when have we ever seen Khan have any kind of stamina issues whatsoever? The only fighter in this fight that I know who has stamina issues is Canelo Alvarez.
Lamont Peterson, Chris Algieri.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, Danny Garcia, because he put so much into the first 6 rounds. Yes, he got caught with the shot, but he was also having to work so much off the back foot because he just didn't have the... I think since he's...
Wait, the Garcia fight only went
Didn't even go that long, did he?
Yeah.
4 rounds, the Garcia fight, wasn't it?
No, I meant the Madonna fight. Sorry, not the Garcia fight. That's what I meant. Sorry, yeah. The Garcia fight, he didn't have a chance because he got starched. But yeah, I mean, I really like Amir Khan. He's the most exciting British fighter to watch, hands down, because he throws in fast flurries, but at any moment the fight could be over. I just don't think he's going to have the power to keep Canelo at bay, and I just think Canelo's going to walk through him. But it's an interesting fight, and like I said, it shouldn't be dull because Khan fights the way he does, and I just don't know whether he'll be effective up at that weight, but we'll see.
You see,
I'm also I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say very briefly there, it got me thinking. Bryn had mentioned about Mario Kinderland. Excuse me, straight after the Olympics, did Frank not bring Kinderland?
He did, yeah. That was a farce, though, that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, like this farcical event in like Newcastle or something.
That's right.
It was a charity do. Yeah, they had him on in a charity event, and Kinderland just didn't look. He didn't look anything like the guy who fought in the Olympics. Put it that
Of
way.
course, brown envelope.
Yeah. No, it was a total bullshit thing. And Khan also went to Havana to meet with some of the elite fighters over there as well. He was really enthralled by the Cuban program, and I mean that's what I mean is he's just somebody. I mean, most of the people in boxing I find like the fighters are good guys to talk to and interview, but Khan in particular just had like a kind of spirit about him that I admired, where he's like, you know, I've already made a lot of money, but that's not enough. That's not why I did this as a kid. It's not why I do it now. He's not saying this because I wasn't interviewing him. I wasn't doing an article. He was just genuinely like, I want a legacy that I can be proud of after I leave the sport. And I just don't see much of that anymore because of what we were talking about earlier, where it's all being about business. And I'm just not...
The anti-Angel Garcia view, basically.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, I know what you say about Khan, you know, he wants a big fights, big balls, stuff like that. There's nobody nowadays actually willing to step up and be great. You know, like you say, we mentioned Duran, okay, he wiped out a lightweight division, 60 plus fights. That would get you into the Hall of Fame nowadays, having a 60 fight career and being top man. But then he steps up in weight 3, 4, 5 times, I think. He even fought up his fight as high as light heavyweight. You know, we can shut and sugar Ray Leonard, okay, but he still stepped up against certain guys. Tommy Hearn's done it. Marvin Hagler not so much because I think some people would say he fought like middleweights. But there's guys out there who just throughout the years, Wilfredo Gomez, he stepped up in weight a couple of times. You know, guys like that, you know, there's nothing like that nowadays. If it's all about business, it's all about the money. It's fair enough, okay. You take the punches, you take the punishment. But don't expect us to fucking like it or back you up if you think he thinks it's a shit fight.
Exactly, and that's my issue with someone like Carl Frampton and Barry McGuigan. They're saying, you know, they don't want to fight Rigondeaux. There's no money in it. They only want money fights. You've just made £2 million fighting Scott Quigg. I mean, you know, you're set for life already. Why not challenge yourself and want to be the best? Because let's be honest, you've just faced Quigg. You're going to fight Santa Cruz. Yeah, it's a good fight, but you're avoiding the best guy in the division, and you know you're claiming to be a unified world champion, or you're claiming to be a champion. How can you be a champion? It's like some fat Polish 100-meter runner saying, "Yeah, I'm the best 100-meter runner in the world, but I'm never going to race against Usain Bolt or any of the Jamaican fellas." You know, you can't avoid the best and then say you're the best. Face the best. If you get beat by Rigondeaux, just like Khan. If Khan gets knocked out in 1 minute of the first round, I'm still giving him respect because he's taken on this massive challenge. You know, you can call him crazy, you can dislike him all you want, but he's trying to go out there. Yeah, he's making good money, but he's taking on it against all odds. No one's really, you know, most people are picking him to lose this fight, and they're saying he's going to get knocked out badly as well. He's going in there, and if he does, you know, a lot of people who dislike him are going to use it against him and laugh at him. But you know what? All the people dislike him. You know, most of them are Cal Brook fans. What's he doing? And where are these other guys? What are they doing? They're avoiding the best. They're not fighting the best. And he's stepping up, you know, basically to middleweight against a light heavyweight in the ring. You know, and it's a huge ask, but he's taking it on, and we need more guys like that.
Yeah, I agree. And another just weird thing I was curious about your guys' take. I've seen some photographs of Khan recently. His body looks strange.
Flabdo.
Yeah, hang on. I think I could explain that. Look,
yeah, I bet you can't, because no, from what I've heard, and I've spoke to you privately about this, mate. I think you know what I think about what he's up to.
Yeah, okay. I just was wondering if we were on the same page with that.
Yeah, definitely.
You think PEDs is in?
Yup.
No, I think you're way off. Look.
Wait. What makes you think I'm way off? Wait a minute. What makes you think I'm way off?
Let me just say it.
What makes you think I'm way off?
Let me just say it. You can tell me where I'm going wrong. Look, if you or I or something try to do, you know, to put on muscle, we could just do body recomp, things like that. But when you are somebody who is an elite athlete, oftentimes to put on size and to do it quickly, you need to basically eat more than your maintenance calories, right? And then you need to lift a lot. And then he's probably trying to put some weight in his legs and put on some muscle there. So he's going to have to be in a surplus. You bulk and then you cut. Right, and then we know that he's going to cut just through training camp because he's going to be burning so many calories, 1,000 calories a day or whatever. So he can put on some muscle to so he can bulk up a little bit so that he could be on even terms with Canelo, and then he'll cut that fat off. I mean, you'll see that he'll be ripped by fight night because, you know, that little beer belly he's got going is not really a beer belly. It's just a result of when you're weight training, you need to be eating excess calories.
Right, well, okay. Brandon, your response to that?
Sounds like an optimistic appraisal. Full credit for your optimism.
But also, Khan's been tested numerous times.
Why does there reek of PEDs? I don't get it.
What happens?
Because it's boxing.
He blows up,
because
doesn't
it's
he?
boxing.
That's brutal.
It's professional sports, and nobody tests for PEDs, and you're going to get a 25% advantage if you take them. That's enough of a sort of incentive that I think you're stupid not to use them.
Exactly. There's John McEnroe today saying about, you know, that Maria Sharapova situation with the melanonium fucking drug and stuff like that. You would be an absolute idiot not to take the legal drugs. I mean, there was idiots out there fucking sniffing that MCAT because it was a class as a legal high and it was better than cocaine. They've had to fucking ban this shit next because people are dropping dead with the shit. I'm not going to come out and say, but I'm suspicious. That's all I'm going to say. And I do know some people, Brendan excluded in this one because I know where he sits with it, but there's people in the boxing world, at least one person I do know, is fucking suspicious of him.
But in fairness, and this isn't a knock to you, it's through probably a very smart look at things. You're suspicious of 90% of fighters. You know, you could make a case for the look of, you know, so many different fighters from both sides of the Atlantic. Their physical appearance, you could certainly put two and two together and say, but unfortunately, unless you've trained and you go through what they go through, I think it's very difficult. So you look at someone like Tim Bradley and you look at that physique, and I look at that and go, there's something about that looks, you know, not quite natural or God-given, as my religious friends would say. I think there's something about his physique and his appearance that you could certainly say, well, has he had some help with that? And you can do that with, you know, pretty much every fighter of the last 20, 25 years. And it's because the drugs are so cheap and because there are various ways to mask it, you know, there's no reason why others may not have taken it. But I don't think you can operate on the assumption that they're all doing it or that the likes of Khan are doing it when he's tested regularly from UCAD and tested when he fights in America. You know, it's not a foolproof system, but I think until you have to work on the innocent till proven guilty. It's not like he obviously looks roided up like, say, Shannon Briggs and people like that.
Well, the other thing is...
Wait. Just before let me say, see, you can't... you can go into dope agency and stuff. I know for a fact that they're all carrying out so many tests, right? No. Khan, on the other hand, maybe he is tested all the time and stuff, but you look at Floyd Mayweather, he was meant to be going through the gold standard of drug testing, right? But each fight, he announced the testing window got fucking shorter and shorter and shorter. Right? And me and Alex has mentioned the name once before, Dr. Don Hale, who was his sponsor for Floyd Mayweather for many years, who fucking did all these anti-aging clinics, testosterone and stuff like that. So you don't know. You've got to be a fucking moron not to be on the juice.
Hang on, though. Wait. But Mayweather was able to, let's just say that you think Mayweather was dirty, which I think the jury is out. Mayweather was able to manipulate when this testing started and stopped based on when the fight was announced.
Yeah.
But if and I didn't even know this, but if what Paul was saying is true, was that that Khan, being a British fighter, has to be tested by UCAD, you know, throughout the year, you know, whether he's fighting or not. That makes the stakes a lot higher for him in terms of, you know, if he wants to take the risk of cheating or something, they could just knock on his door one night and you know, say, hey, it's time to give your sample, and, you know, he'd be in deep trouble. So, I mean, there's that. Also, the thing is that I don't think he would do that because, you know, if you're messing with roids, that can fuck with your speed, and, like, that's, like, his biggest asset. So I don't really think that, you know, you'd really want to do that. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. But those are two big reasons why I don't think his, you know, apparent flabby belly, if you will, is suspicious. But, you know, people are going to think what they're going to think.
Anyone else want to weigh in with this?
Well, I mean, I'll say I'm suspicious of someone like Anthony Joshua. You know, people like, you know, I think he's a nice guy, he's Olympic gold medalist. He wouldn't take drugs. You know, they're the ones who do it. You know, the ones. You know, it's just how much weight or lean muscle mass has he put on? If you go and look at box record, check his weight. Wasn't his debut in like the 220s, and now he's coming in almost 250 pounds, less than a year and a half later. And he's not fat, is he? He's still chiseled to the bone. I mean, I'm no expert on it, so I don't know, but to me that just looks a bit suspicious.
30 pounds of lean muscle is a lot, but he is a young guy, isn't he? I mean, he could be growing, so.
What, 30 pounds in 1 year?
Alright, is a
What's
lot.
he eating, a fucking puma?
Well, and I think the issue that I have with this, like having been an amateur boxer, where even not a lot of elite guys were in the gym that I was training at, and there was a lot of PEDs around. It was a regular thing, and it's just to see your body once you're an adult improve 5% over a couple of years is a dramatic change, following like the proper procedures. But to see guys in 6 months get like an overhaul of a new body, which we've seen with Khan already. I think like this is not just one overhaul. We're kind of seeing the second overhaul of his physique. I haven't seen that with people following a natural regimen. I've just never seen it. I've never seen somebody at 21, 22 years old suddenly get a new body. I've seen improvement, a little leaner or whatever. Tyson's body didn't change after he was, a pro. It never got much bigger. He always fought at the same weight, basically until he got fat and got softer. But to see these guys go from 20 to 25 years old and become like a different athlete, that's where my suspicion gets piqued.
I mean, yeah, but have you ever, I mean, you're talking about guys in your gym, and you yourself just said, well, there wasn't a lot of elite athletes around. I mean, the way these guys train compared to like what you saw at your local gym, I mean, it has to be night and day, I'd imagine, right?
Well, yeah, I would agree. I'm just saying, like, at that gym, there was a few guys who were in the top 10 of professional boxing who'd been there at some point. And to see the changes that I've seen since, like, the mid-'90s in boxing, or even the early '90s, where you see Holyfield and Tommy Morrison and a handful of these other guys. I mean, look at the changes that Shannon Briggs had from going from 350-pound goon of a man to this scary, shredded, like looks like a human bomb that's halfway to exploding kind of
Bread
thing.
and water, bud. Bread and water. Obviously, it's bread and water.
Yeah, bread and water. Yeah. No, I mean it's just I don't know, and I don't know that Khan is cheating, so I don't want to cast aspersions. I mean, I am casting aspersions, but I just mean it's how dramatic the change is, and these guys only account for it. Like Marquez is, I've refined my training methods. You were a monster in the gym. You were a machine in the gym. What the hell could you be doing differently that you're getting a 30% better body than you had before when you were younger and producing more natural testosterone and growth hormone? I just don't believe that.
And that's the thing. I mean, we know boxing is as dirty as it is and dodgy as it is, with so many cheats out there. People still don't like it when you say suspicions. If you say, obviously you can't prove anything, but I look at this guy, he's mentioned Khan, mentioned Anthony Joshua. You can mention anyone and say, yes, I've got suspicions about that guy. And some people don't like it. You have to have proof and all that. But I can't believe that they have those views when boxing is so dirty, and there's so many guys out there, and we've seen it with someone like Eric Morales who cheats, and Golden Boy just keep retesting until he just passes. It's so corrupt, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I have a suspicion about that guy, but obviously I can't prove anything. As long as you're not labelling anyone a cheat, you just what's wrong with having a suspicion? And I think some guys are, whether they change their body dramatically or their performances change dramatically. I mean, Marquez is a clear case. The guy was a featherweight, suddenly became a monster at like a welterweight. His body was incredible at 40 years old. I mean, no one's saying they can prove he's cheated, but surely you'd be a bit weird not to have a slight suspicious there, whether you like him or not. And we're all fans of Marquez.
Well, and I think also you have clear cases, precedents in the other sports where somebody comes out and blows a whistle. Jose Canseco comes out and says, 70% of the major leaguers are using steroids. And everybody I knew where a player that they loved was sort of tarred by that said, oh, come on, there's no way it happened. Mark McGuire just started using weights later. He didn't use weights when he began. I'm saying he looks like a professional wrestler. That's not what happens when you start using weights. You don't gain 50 pounds of lean muscle when you're around 30 years old. Barry Bonds was like a speed player originally. Like so, same with the world of cycling. Like Lance Armstrong estimated there were like 95% of the people competing were cheats. That you couldn't even be remotely competitive if you weren't cheating with what the peloton was like. And so you just move that over to boxing. If you're going to get a 20% increase in your overall performance, what you're able to achieve, 20%. Like think of how much that is in any other sport. If it's the 100-meter dash, that's the difference between like you're not even remotely competitive at an Olympic level, or you could be breaking world records.
Well, I'm just curious, where are you getting the 20% from, though? Because I think you can tell me all day you can roid up any way you want to, but if you don't have fundamental boxing skills, you're going to get your ass beat in the ring. I mean, I question sometimes exactly whether the benefits in boxing of PEDs are as dramatic as you're stating them to be.
Why would you question that?
Why would you take them? Why would you take them if they didn't fucking work?
Yeah, exactly. Why would you? EPO, you're getting more growth hormone, you're getting more testosterone, you're getting more endurance, you're able to train harder, and you're able to recover better. Like, what else would you like the drugs to offer these athletes? It improves every facet of performance. So in what sense would it just magically be suspended, those benefits in boxing? All of those apply, or all of them are directly germane to what you're able to achieve in a competitive environment fighting. And then you'd have the added confidence that you're using all this shit. I mean, I've never understood that argument. Like, yeah, it's fighting, but so what? It's athletic performance, it's recovery, it's training methods, and it's endurance. Like, just physiologically, you're a different athlete.
You're right. I mean, the benefits you get in terms of the recovery and being able to train harder and recover more easily, I think that's the main benefits of roids, I think, or any kind of PEDs, I think, are definitely probably more seen in the gym. And then ultimately that translates to ring success because of the amount of extra effort you've been able to put in. But I guess my point was sort of just that, you can take somebody with limited fighting experience, let them use every PED in the world, they become like a jacked monster. They look like Anthony Joshua, but that doesn't mean that they can fight like him.
I mean, I take your point, but yeah. Barry Bonds was one of the greatest baseball players ever, and then he took steroids, and he went from hitting high 40s home runs to hitting over 70. What's the difference? The difference is he was using chemicals. Yeah. There was a chemical barrier that allowed him to have not just a slight improvement, but a radically different person who was able to achieve those things. Nothing psychologically. There was no hindrance to his ability to perform psychologically. None of that improved. It's just what is going on physiologically in the interaction with these chemicals. And I think, like, why would you not, like, look at Marquez. Look at the difference between Marquez in the fourth fight versus the other three. He was hitting him cleanly before. He wouldn't go down. And then he's hitting him with kind of bullshit shots, like even blocked shots. And Pacquiao's just going down like the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan. Just boom. Just blocking by stuff. And what's the difference? It's look at his body. I've found some new refined methods to train. Yeah, you're 40 years old. Like, what?
Seems so obvious, doesn't it?
Well, a lot of kids started drinking their own urine after seeing Marquez. Not lying, he's probably laced with about 20 different PEDs. Shame on one for doing that. Poor kids.
Plus, you've also got the scientific argument as well, as that even though you've stopped PEDs, you're still going to get the benefit of them for like maybe I don't know how many years or how many months down the line. But it's been proven that you will get the benefits once you stop. So, anyways, probably a good time to end the show here. I think we've almost done it at 2.5 hours this week. So it's been good stuff, some good chats. I'd like to thank all the guys on the show this week: Alex Morris, Adam Smith, the return of the great Kurt Ward, the award-winning Steve Wellens, Donny Baseball, Paul Webb, and obviously the documentary filmmaker and journalist, good author, Bryn Jonathan Butler. I've been your host, Andy Patterson. We'll see you next week. All the best.